Okay. Streams up. We got some cool stuff planned today. Because we're going to be looking at all the new bosses in Nerub'ar Palace. Oh, it's a dash. All the new bosses in Nerub'ar Palace with the one and only Stanky. It's going to be fun. Now, for raid testing, we have done 5 now. 5 of the 8 bosses. So we haven't seen Silken Court yet. That's going to be not this week, but next week. Same with Sikran, Captain of the Sareki. And then Mythic testing is starting that same week. No testing this week. And then Queen and Sarek is not going to be tested at all. So that's going to be interesting. So we're going to have some kind of general idea on how some of these bosses are going to work, but not all of them. I also have some video footage here, and Raid Plan has some images of some of the rooms. Like there's a lot of potential platforms here, I think, for Queen and Sarek. Shoot us through the floor. I think this is, yeah, maybes. We don't know exactly about this boss room, and we don't know exactly about this boss room potentially. Oh no, we do. There we go. But we have all the other boss rooms, and I have some footage here from the 5 heroic bosses that we have tested so far to give a little bit of context. But again, still missing 2 of the bosses from testing and 1 boss, Queen Ansarek, which is not going to be tested at all. Plus, of course, we've got the dungeon journal, which seems to be actually exceptionally updated. Like, this is a very, very finished state. The dungeon journal seems to be, which is good. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. Also, what was a good sign was the fact that they were planning to machine gun out raid testing. It means that they were prepared, or at least they seemed like they were prepared. So that's always good. And I will say, so far out of the bosses I've seen, there's a lot of like Nazothi vibes, right? There's like a little Gahuni boy in Brood Twister. There's all this like you know, the Elganoth vibe. Like it's very, very what's it called? Old gaudy. Cool. It's a good vibe. This is PTR or beta. This is beta. And yeah, it's beta that has the raid testing as well. So you have to make a character on the beta. PTR is only going to be for testing the pre-patch. That's what PTR is going to be used for. I'm excited to look at these though, yeah, because the animations too on some of these bosses, like Nexus Princess animations, are like exceptionally sick. They were so cool. Also, a lot of voidy stuff too. On top of the old god, like there's also a bunch of like voidy looking mechanics, which are really cool. Look at like the voidy armor on this person. Silken Court voidy, no, but Nexus Princess is big voidy. Even the Queen Ansarek got some voidy on her. And a giant dumpy. Right. They sell the beta, making raid testing on beta. Company is so scuffed. Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't really happy, specifically not necessarily with the beta testing stuff, because they also send out free waves for beta. That's what they did in the past too. But the buying like the 3 or 4 day early access is a little rough in MMO. I get that it's like not important in the sense that a lot of stuff is going to be limited, but it definitely feels a little icky for sure. A little scummy. Personally, I don't care about the beta testing stuff. Just because it gives people an avenue. If they actually do want the beta test, they can buy it if they really, really want to. And if you don't care about beta testing, you don't have to. And otherwise, you can still get an invite to the beta, right? I know some people have gotten invites to beta and didn't pre-order. Or they didn't pre-order the mega pack, the big one, you know. Get all my stuff ready here. Is that? Is this a Grimbatol 7 we did? Just a short little Grimbatol 7. Those open. Yeah, I got all these open. That. Okay. Let's see when he's good to go. I like this little tower here. I've been hanging out here all beta. Kind of a vibe. Stay out of my tower, bud. Wait, how many this is an 8 boss raid? My man said a giant dumpy. I mean, she got a giant dumpy. It do be true. I don't know what to tell you. Also, dude, the amount of mechanics that just like impregnates players in this raid is kind of absurd. There's too many of those. Why is there more than even one of those in a single raid? Just everyone is getting like, where is it? The tank mechanic here? Where was it? Oh, I don't remember. This? No. I hear. No, wait, no, this is just getting injected. Don't threaten me with a good time. Yeah. Literally, I cannot, like, just anytime people talk about this raid in our guild Discord, they just continuously spam about how me and my co-tank are going to get impregnated. Howlings going flap flap on their tail where you run around. Oh, it is actually kind of funny. Yeah, no, it is actually. Yeah, it does look. That's why they call it the War Within. Oh my god, it all makes sense. It all makes sense now. Dude, seriously, where was that mechanic? Oh, is it Infest? Ah, yeah, here it is. Current targets get injected with shadowy egg sacs, and they nourish themselves on your life force, and then they, you know, erupt. What a time to start tanking again. Oh yeah, you picked the correct expansion. Let's fucking go. Got some xenomorph stuff going. Oh no. Oh no. At least other people get injected somewhere too. Is it this boss? No, it's not this boss. Maybe there was a. Oh gosh, which boss? I think it was one of the bosses we tested. Oh yeah, people get in. Oh no, people are just getting injected here. You get injected. There's a lot of injections too. All out to the co-tank is just gonna be I'm pregnant. That's actually a good calm. That is a good calm. So what even is that ability actually? Where is it? It's like down here. Is this even a taunt off? I don't think it is. Damage. Oh, you have to run away with it? and you spawn ads. So I guess it kind of is a taunt off. But also this. She's got 2 different tank mechanics per phase. I haven't read it. I'm spoiling myself. I'm spoiling myself. Usually you run away and leave the kid. I'm just going to get a pack of cigarettes and some milk from the corner store. Don't worry. I'll be back. My son. What is it? What does my son look like? He's very shadowy. My son? Suspicious. All right. Oh, he DM'd me on Twitter. Twitter. Okay. Alright, let's go to the first boss. I haven't looked at the myth mechanic on this boss either, actually. I haven't looked at the myth mechanic on any of these bosses. So let's minus everything. No, don't want to look at you. There we go. On phase 2. Just a 1-phase fight? Dang. Dang. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a 1-phase fight. It's like a pseudo intermission. 1-phase fight. 2-phase fight. It's like a multi-phase fight here. Liquefy Feast. What was the last boss? Oh, yeah. Let's minimize these tank things. X. Oh. Boom. Boom. Okay. Okay, we're good. Models in this place are pretty cool, though. Got a giant. What is this? This guy's a crab for sure, right? Like this guy's a crab. Ilganoth looking ass. I don't know what this is. Is this? Oh no, is this the empowered with some lore shit? The Nerubians got empowered and they're humans now. Is that what that is? That sounds right. I don't know what the hell this thing is. Bro's got 6 arms. Not even a fucking spider, just a weird thing. Got a little Gahuni. Little Gahuni. This is an ethereal, right? It does say Nexus Princess too. What's the lore on this guy? Girl. Mothra? Was it like a spooky moth or something? I don't know. Arrived at Nerub'ar Palace only recently, establishing herself as a confidant of the queen. However, rumors around within the inner court that she may harbor a dark and deadly secret. Wow. That's crazy. This is just a bunch of standard... What are these things called again? Nerubians? Yeah, there we go. Bunch of the stereotypical. The big dude and the skinny dude. And then Big Dumpy. There are a lot of ads on this fight. Holy shit. Ad fight? Final boss ad fight? Oh, I guess this means too that it's a final boss ad fight and a second final boss duo? Is this considered a council? There's no way, right? I guess we'll find out. So you can actually just make extra sockets now. Only for rings and necks. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like the tier medallion settings, but it also applies to rings now too. So now, I mean, that's good because ring eye level, jewelry eye level in general, the sockets were worth more than a shit ton of eye levels. So it probably makes sense you can just freely socket those, and then you have to actually earn sockets on helmet, racer's belt. Yo, what's up, man?
All good, all good. I'm chugging energy drinks as per usual, working on my kidney stone.
Classic.
All well with you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It is luckily 6 hours back for me, so I am drinking coffee instead of energy drinks right now. But
you're gonna swap over later, then, yeah.
oh yeah. That's for tonight.
Just to keep you going. Cool. This is gonna be interesting. I've never done any, collab-y thing on stream before, so I figured we'd just check stuff out and see what happens. My main plan was mainly to check through the dungeon journal of the bosses, check a bit about the mechanics, see if we have any theories. We've tested 5 of them, so I think we got a pretty good idea on those, but we can still talk about them. And then the final 3 that we haven't tested, or including Queen, which we won't get to test.
Yeah, I'm excited. I have raid plan kind of ripped up at the moment because they have it looks like the boss rooms for most of the thing, even the ones we haven't tested, so it gives us a little bit of something to go on at least.
That makes sense. I'm gonna pull that up as well. There we go. Yeah, right. They usually have those up. Create raid plan.
Yeah, I don't know if you were doing it, but the first day of testing, for some reason the teleporter guy would just take you to literally any of the testable bosses, and a bunch of them were actually up too, while the first boss wasn't available. So we were jumping around doing other stuff.
We only pulled I think it was brood twister or whatever it's called, the big worm. We pulled day 1, but we didn't try the other ones. Oh no, we did pull Nexus Princess as well, a little bit. But I mean, raid testing is always always wild. Although I think this time, raid testing has been way more stable this time around, except the first hour on the first day, but the second day of raid testing, I didn't experience any lag or anything. There was a few disconnects, but that's about it.
Yeah, it was pretty smooth, and I mean that kind of it's a pretty standard pattern, I think, with some of the earlier raid testings and for other expansion stuff. Is like the first couple are a bit rocky, but then
Yeah.
they seem to be they get things under control relatively quickly, which is nice.
I don't know if you remember raid testing in Vaulted Incarnates, but we first evening, I think everyone in our group had between 10k ms or above, and around 2 to 4 minute delay. Uh, it was very
Classic.
interesting. It was horrible.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is probably a bit worse for you guys too, because the servers are in NA, right? For the raid, the beta
Yeah,
realms. Yeah.
I think the people in NA had a lot of lag, but not like EU. Because I remember on Discord, some people were talking about the fight or something that happened, and we were like, but we're still in the fight. They're like, no, we died a minute ago. Oh, I see. Um, Anyways, I thought we could just jump into it. I don't know if we want to do mainly heroic or if we want to add in mythic mechanics as well.
Yeah, I think we can start by like talking about like maybe the base like heroic boss, and then after we've like gone through, we can go back and see what the mythic mechanic kind of is and like how
Yeah,
it alters it maybe.
yeah,
And yeah,
and that makes sense.
we can just. Oh, do you know the raid layout? I think I stole the raid layout somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it's like Ulgrax is first, and
Yeah,
then from there you have a choice between Bloodbound and Sikrin, which Sikrin we haven't tested yet.
yeah.
And then after you've done that, you have Rashanan. And then Rashanan, after that's defeated, you again have a choice between Brood Twister and Nexus Princess. And then after you defeat both of those, it's a straight line to Queen Ansarek from with the Silken Court.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. So a little bit of choice. It's like I'm trying to remember the raid, the first raid in BFA. You had kind of the same. You could always go to two bosses depending on which path you took. But it's
Yeah.
always nice.
And yeah,
But
Aldir, right? Yeah, Aldir.
yeah. I was gonna say Old War, but I'm like, no, it's not that. It's close to.
Yeah, interesting how there's like just no wings though. Like in this raid, it's just like you only ever have a choice between potentially two bosses at a time.
I think that could be. I think that could be kind of good. You kill one boss, then you get a decision. Kill both, then you have to kill another boss to get more decisions. That could be interesting to see how it works out. Of course,
Yeah,
might suck if it's like if Olgrax is super easy, Bloodbound is super easy, and then Sikrin is a wall, and you can't try Rashan or Rushan on before doing Sikrin. Then, but I don't. It's hard to say since we haven't tried Sikrin.
yeah. Tuning two is kind of up in the air, right? Because usually one of those early bosses is at least a bit tougher than the others. So will be interesting to see which one that ends up being.
Yeah. 1 sec, I'm just gonna type something out.
Yeah, no worries. Miss yesterday's stream, quick opinion on how DK is looking, Blood DK in particular. A
There we go.
little more button
But
heavy,
I
but
figure we start with
very, very well tuned for sure.
Olgrax the Devourer.
Yeah, just rip in order. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So if we just start with, I figure we just go over the abilities. I mean, we've tested it, but not everyone who's might be watching might not have.
Yeah.
So starting off, we had the brutal lashing, which he lashes himself to a player and all other allies within 10 yards of inflicting X amount of nature damage divided between all lashed players. And then, there was a little circle around him and a tug of war. So that mechanic was, I mean, as we tried it out, at first I thought we were had to break the lash, but it turned out to just be, run in place and try not to get eaten up by the boss.
Yeah,
I don't know
because
if you tried, if you limit tested it anything like how many you needed, because we just put everyone in it.
yeah.
But I think it might be a mechanic where you just send a few players in, the minimum amount.
Yeah, so we did limit test it, and the minimum amount turns out, at least on heroic, was one. If you could, of course, I think it does a big hit of damage, right? Yeah, it's 23 million
Yeah.
nature damage, but the thing is, it seemed like any immunity did kind of work on it. So things
Mm,
like spell warding, things like ice block, that kind of thing, and you could just immune it. Now on Mythic, I am reading it now, actually. It says
yeah.
if fewer than 6 players are lashed,
Ah,
then bad things happen to you. Reading that now. So it looks
yeah.
like you're going to have to at least put 6 players in there. And with it dealing 23 million damage on Mythic, I don't know if 6 is going to be enough. Because as a tank, I think tanks had around, with the normal mode gear, I think around like 10 million HP ish, right? So actually,
Yeah.
maybe 6. I don't know what DPSers were at. They're definitely significantly less than that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, enhancement, they don't survive anything, so you can't even put them in there.
R.I.P.
But I wonder, I mean, most of those mechanics usually turn out to be, or they usually tune it so you can't immune it anymore. But seeing as it's the first boss, they might let you. Because, like, Rashanan had a similar mechanic, but that one, as far as I could see, you could not immune, because then it hits everyone in the raid, kind of like Terros in Bolted Incarnates. But I don't see anything of that type for Brutal Lashing, so I guess we'll see. Because if you can immune it on Mythic, then it's just gonna be a put 6 immunes in it and be happy.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if the question is, do you want to actually commit 6 immunes to it? Because like
True.
that is like relatively comp restricting, and with it being a first boss, I assume the tuning is going to be exceptionally light, right? Like I I,
Yeah.
I assume like you might have 2 groups maybe, and you just throw half your raid in the first and half your raid in the second and call it a day. But
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's any. Is there a debuff here that makes it so you can't soak
No,
twice in
doesn't
a
seem it.
row?
It's
Okay.
no. It just seems. Yeah, you soak it, you run in place, or run against the pull in, and that's
Yeah.
that pretty much.
Yeah.
One thing we did try with that one though, which I think could be a thing once you progress, is it's using the webs around the room to not have to move, because you can get. I believe you got rooted in place and not slowed. I gotta
Yeah.
reread
Yeah.
it.
It's a
Yeah,
full
rooted.
route. Yeah.
So, which is a bit interesting, because some of the mechanics, he does the poison circles. I'm skipping a bit. I gotta find what it's called. Digestive venom from the venomous lash. That one clears webbing, but if you want to use the web for the pull-in effect, then you can't use that mechanic to clear them. So it's a little bit weird.
Yeah. Actually, interesting too, because I just have the Mythic boss journal open now.
Mm.
So on Mythic, the webs actually stun you. They don't root you.
Ah,
So I get that. Again, that seems like there are things you can do on heroic, like solo immune, the brutal lashings, use the webs to help you if you're getting pulled in. That on Mythic, they're like, no, 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 you can't do that. So that is interesting.
but I mean that makes sense though. For me, I kind of like that approach, because heroic should be an easier stepping
Oh, for
stone
sure.
in
Yeah.
raiding towards mythic. So allowing players to get a little bit of creative with handling the mechanics, so they can progress, learn, and things like that, makes sense in my head. Punishing them with mythic mechanics and rules might not be the way to go for player retention.
Yeah. Yeah. And this still has like decent counterplay, I would think. So like on heroic, for example, we were just like running around with freedoms and stuff like that and clearing the webs. But I guess now instead of doing that, you'd run around with like immunities like bubble or something to clear through web. Turtle, I think, worked as well. So you'd probably do
Yeah,
something like that to clear room if you needed to on Mythic, instead of using the freedoms, which I think is fine because you now aren't really going to be immunitying the brutal lashings because you need the minimum of 6 there.
right, right. I don't think that makes sense that the fight plays out more as intended, if you will, on Mythic with the stuns. Because I mean, it doesn't make sense for me on Heroic to have the mechanic that clears the webs, when you kind of want to use them for the pull-in effect, but it makes perfect sense as soon as you add in the mythic mechanic to it. Trying to find my own footage here from the testing. Wish I organized my own files.
Organization? No, no, no.
Nah, don't do that. That's... Why would you do that?
Just number the videos. That's all you need to do.
All mine are called World of Warcraft and the date.
Good. Yes. There you go. That's it.
It's very easy. Damn it. I wanted to find... figure I could have the footage of the fight running a bit as we talking about it. I think I found it. Here we have some. There we go. Okay, now I can swap a little between so people can can look at the raid fight at the same time. Is there any other mechanic from the fight in phase 1 you feel we should talk about, or should we talk a little bit about the charge intermission?
Yeah, the intermission is cool. I think the only other phase 1 mechanic was the tank one, which was supposed to be a frontal, but I don't think it was actually working on raid testing because we had people stacked up on me, and I don't think they took any damage from the tank buster, but potentially a frontal tank buster.
So don't stand on tank, or do and
Or do.
scream 1 heal.
Yep, there you go. But yeah, the intermission was very cool looking.
Oh yeah, that blew me away. I had the whole, you know, reactionary stream thing going on with the jaw dropped, but it was actually authentic. Because it took me by surprise, because reading the journal, I was like, okay, he's going to do a charge, and you don't want to stand in the charge, right? But it was a little bit more more to it than just the charge. I'm checking the VOD now, see if I can get into that part. There we go. So did you find any way to bait it, or did it seem completely random? Because we tried a little bit, but it mainly seemed to, you know, be random. It looked at one point that it targeted the largest clump of player because we got it to charge towards us 3 times in a row, but then the 4th time it just charged completely random direction.
Yeah, I think we came to like a similar conclusion where it seems to be at minimum proximity targeting. Like we had one of our charges which didn't seem to be at the largest clump of players, but it was relatively close, and there was someone else in that area when it kind of went out. So potentially it's a random player, potentially it's proximity based, but in general, like when we did a run where we were fully stacked up in the intermission, and every single thing was aimed very close to us. So there seems to be some positioning at least taken into account.
Well, that makes sense. I do wonder though, once you if you actually want to bait it, at least on heroic, might be different on mythic, but on heroic it seems might be hectic, you know, to get it to always charge towards you. Might be easier to dodge if it's spread out, but I'm not sure.
It seemed pretty easy to dodge when we were all together, because it was basically just like we all stacked up. The ads would all be funneling towards us, right? Because there's just spawning around the place, but because we're all in one spot, the ads just kind of walk in, and then we can just easily step left or step right depending on where we are and where the bait was. So I think it's definitely good. Again, I actually haven't read through the mythic mechanics in this phase, so we'll see if that's bad. It looks, oh, there is a mythic ad. What does this guy do? Bioactive Spines. 1 million nature damage to up to 5 enemies within 40 yards, and adapts the caster's bioglands to inflict 10% additional nature damage per successful volley. Oh, so this is like an AoE attack it's using?
Up to 5 enemies. I gotta reread that one.
Yeah, like I guess if 5 target, like 5 random players get hit or something within 40 yards, maybe?
I always get confused when they mix up their wording in journals, because sometimes, you know, sometimes it's intended, like it says enemies, but usually it says players. But yeah, it's probably just it targets 5 players within 40 yards. Give them the bile glands to inflict 10% additional nature damage. No, I think it targets 5 of the ads then, and they do the volley. when I'm rereading it. So inflicts X amount of nature damage to up to 5 enemies within 40 yards and adapts the casters by. Oh, okay, no, it adapts the casters, not the targets. Yeah, reading is hard. Uh,
Very hard. Very. I mean, the beta journal too. I've already caught a fair share of like grammar and spelling mistakes. It's early. I'm sure stuff will be reworded.
it usually does. I mean, I remember Painsmith back in the days. His first dungeon journal was so weird. Has so many weird things going on in it. Um, anyways, we can move on the intermission part because the other, except for the Juggernaut charge where he just goes side to side and smacks everyone else. He also spawns the Ravenous Spawn ads that I didn't even notice first until they were dead because the nameplates were bugged, so I literally didn't see them. Haha, bugged. Um, but from what it seemed, it was just pick these up as a tank, everyone AoE's down, and if you could, boss charges through them and insta gives them. And I guess you want to stack them up, potentially use stuns and crowd control since you have the bleed from them.
Yeah, especially if those new ones on Mythic are actually doing AoE damage to the group, you're definitely gonna want to lock them down and kill them quickly.
Yeah. And I think it could be a case, at least on Mythic, where you, if possible, and if you can deliberately bait the charge, then you would stack up the ads there and just stun them as you move out and have them just chunk all the ads in one go.
Yeah, true. Things like Nox and like
Yeah.
mass grips and stuff could be really useful for that.
And then yeah, the last part of the fight, I didn't completely understand this mechanic while testing. I mean, I understand how it works ish, but he did he's hungry, he's hangry, he wants food, and you pick up the bugs and you throw it at him to satiate his hunger. But it's the whole each time Olgrek screams, he gains an application of insatiable rage. And in my head, you throw the beetles so that doesn't happen. But when we tested it, it seemed to happen anyways.
Yeah, yeah. It seemed like no matter what, he's going to get one stack of the buff, maybe.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's intended. Could be a bug, but it could also just be like, hey, this second phase for 30 seconds is going to be tougher now. And that's just how it works. Because it's 25% fizz dam, right? But he doesn't do a ton of fizz dam. It's mostly just on the
Hmm.
tanks, right? Like if you think about, or if you go back
Yeah,
and
that's
look,
true.
it's all like nature damage, nature damage, nature damage. It's only the tanks actually getting hit. So potentially it's intended, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, oh no, there was just supposed to be like 3 extra seconds for you to actually throw bugs in, and now you can actually cancel the first one if you're fast.
But it's overall kind of fun mechanic, I think. I mean, it's the gimmicky stuff that Blizzard does well, in my opinion, and it wasn't too annoying to interact apart from the bugs having a cast time. That I did not like. I don't know if you tried throwing one, but it had like a
Yeah,
one and a
yeah.
half sec cast time, and that is just instant feels bad because you're not getting rewarded in any way. I mean, you're rewarded by not buffing the boss, but who cares about that as an individual player?
Who cares if he does physical damage? That's on the
Right? Fuck
tanks.
tanks. One heal.
How do you think
Um,
this boss ranks in terms of first bosses in the last like couple expansions?
for me, it's I don't know if I have a number for it, but it's for sure one of the better ones I've tried in a long while. I mean, I liked. Gotta go do a little thinking here or check what they were called in the in Dragonflight. Uh, Aeronog, I was not a fan of. Kasara was really good. So if we
Yeah.
compare it to Kazara, I think Kazara is better, but I think it's definitely up there. But it depends on how it's gonna be in Mythic because on Heroic it was just a fun, good first fight. Not too complex, really cool mechanics, and visually cool looking,
Oh
which I think
yeah.
you can't really ask for more. I mean, if you compare it to Eternal Palace first boss, that was nightmare fuel. I mean, even when we had cleared the raid and we were fully decked out, I don't think we ever killed that boss with everyone alive. It's just it won't happen.
Yeah, this one definitely seems much, much more forgiving. Like classic, it's a classic modern first boss in my opinion. Like There's some flashy animations. There's some, you know, not a very tightly tuned mechanics that are quite forgiving, and it probably will just kind of fall over in one pull or sub 5 pulls for a lot of guilds.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Like they shouldn't be more than that. I
Yeah.
don't think the first one or two bosses should be pose any real challenge, if you will. It should be fine for heroic guilds to go in and kill those and perhaps then start to struggle. But like the first boss shouldn't be a struggle ever.
Yeah, and it just actually seemed like Blizzard, at least in the last couple of raids, has actually been, at least tuning wise, aiming for the first whatever fills your first great vault slot. That many bosses are relatively easy compared to the rest of it. At least that's something I've noticed
Hmm.
in Dragonflight raids. If you look at, like, the first raid, the first two bosses, that's Aranog and Council, that got you your 2 box, and those bosses were definitely the easiest bosses in there by a lot. I think Aberrus was 3 bosses, if I remember right. And so you had to do
Yeah.
Kazara, Amalgamation, and Assault,
Yeah.
which is like clearly after those 3 bosses is when the difficulty step up starts. So at least it's kind of been seeming that way to me. So I wonder if that pattern's going to continue in this raid.
That's a really cool theory. I hadn't thought about it, but now that you mention it, that makes kind of sense because it really has been like that. It was the same in I gotta go back to yeah, Mirdrasil, Gnarlroot was cake, Igira was cake, and Volcross was cake. I mean, to some degree, Council, I guess, as well, but I'd say Council was a clear step up from
Yeah,
Volcross.
yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. You might be onto something here. Now, watch them change it now. You're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna get one extra boss that's really, you're only gonna get 2 easy, and the third one's gonna be a wall.
I'm ready for it.
Give it that wall.
Are you off topic? Are you a fan
Yep.
of the mid raid wall boss?
Um, I am actually. Depends on how mid it is. I want it, I mean, if it's an 8 boss tier, I'd say 4 is probably a good for a tiny wall. But the thing I don't like with those type of walls is if the following bosses are way easier. Like, of course, a wall is going to be harder, but if you killed, like, if I remember correctly from Sanctum,
Yeah.
when you killed Painsmith, then you could go on to other bosses and they just fucking flopped over. And that's a little weird to me. Like a wall, yes. Like if you have Halandris or something, that's fine. But the next boss shouldn't flop over. But it might not have to be as wally as
Yeah. Because
as
like
Painsmith or something like that.
for me, like, if the bosses after the wall are easier than the bosses before the wall, maybe there was a slight
Yeah,
problem with the tuning. And Sanctum is like the perfect example, right? Where it's like,
yeah,
was Guardian of the first ones really that much harder than Soul Render or Remnant when you did them? Like, I don't think so. We might have less wipes on
no,
Guardian than those bosses.
yeah. I think we had fewer on Guardian as well. I mean, that one was just a DPS check and have, if I recall correctly, enough immunities to sort the slam. But after that, yeah, the only execution part you needed was for people to not be dumb with the 3 circles recharging the pylon, which of course happens that people are dumb. But apart from that, there wasn't really much to it. Tank called, or in our group, I called the immunity soaks, and that was it. Like, oh, group 1 immunity soak, group 2 immunity soak. So wasn't much to it. Plus, you could just solo tank it as a brewmaster, which was fun.
Oh yes, I remember Sloot solo tanking it during the Race to World first stuff
Yeah.
as a paladin. I think that was funny.
Oh, and that's impressive. I did as a brewmaster, and you could do some obscene damage from the stagger abuse with
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Angry Dave or Nizao. I think the Mon community calls him Angry Dave, if I recall correctly. But otherwise, yeah, I think I do like wall bosses, especially from viewing point when you're watching Race to World first. It's really fun seeing them tackle something like Halandras.
Oh yeah, yeah. Halon, yeah, that raid was also like the opposite of Sanctum, where it's like every
Yeah,
boss at the end was like a wall, like Halandris. was
Oh
obviously
yeah,
massive, but then straight from Halandris, you didn't get a break. You went into Anduin right after
oh
that,
yeah.
and
What a
Rygallon
fight
was
though.
tough too.
I liked Anduin. Anduin was fun.
It was fun. I did thoroughly
I
enjoy it.
liked that raid up until Jailer. I despised Jailer. It could have been a cool fight because I really like it from a mechanical standpoint. It was just, it was rough, man, and the tuning was rough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
I've
mean, I
derailed
remember going
us.
in as a brewmaster and getting, with stagger chunked down to, 10-20%
Oh,
from an
his
auto swing from
melees.
Jailer.
Yeah, the melees were
Uh,
crazy on that boss.
but now I play DPS, so now I don't have to care about that.
Now just begging for one heal.
One heal and hoping, praying that I might get PI, but nope. There's a warlock, a mage, a shadow priest. There's a devastation evoker. There's hunters. Yeah, I'm not gonna get it.
I heard Windwalkers are maybe on that list now.
To get it, what? They've never liked haste. Did you like haste now?
Yeah, they reworked Fists of Fury to scale with
Mm,
haste.
the fuck? I mean, I think that's healthy. We're off topic again, but I think that's healthy for them because they were just like verse. Like they didn't scale kind of with secondary stats at all. I remember the monk, the windworker in my old guild complained a lot about it. Like it was just not any good gear. You just wanted pretty much eye level and verse and proc stuff because they didn't do damage themselves.
Yeah, all the knickknacks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, we are on topic. We're talking about
Yep.
the Bloodbound horror.
And the windwalker that came with it. Okay, so we can go back to. I don't think there's anything else to go over with Olgrax.
Yeah.
So I think we can move on to Bloodhound Gang. This one I really liked from testing. Like it's a little bit mix of the, trying to remember what that voidy boss was called in Eternal Palace, the second to last one. I gotta check.
It's not Mithrak. No, that's the old dear one.
Let's see your brain. Zakul.
There it is. Yeah.
Harbinger of Nyalotha. So it reminded me a little bit of that because you have the voidy stuff, you have the tentacles, and you go down into different layers.
Yeah, yeah, and this one seemed, at least on heroic, to be pretty straightforward. Where you just make two groups. You send half your raid down with the first group, half your raid down with the second. And the going down thing is like a frontal on the active tank. So a bunch of people need to like get into that frontal if you're going down, and then when you're actually in that area, you can see the ads. Or you can hit the ads. You can actually see the ads no matter if you're up or down, but you can actually hit them if you are in that down group. So seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and it was, I don't know, I really liked the testing from it, both figuring it out and just trying out, but it also ramped up after every intermission or every halftime, if you will, with the big AoEs. You started the fight with the two groups, check for where the orbs spawned, and then we had the tank run there in the group that was going to go down first on the slam. So we just slammed the first ad pack and that group went down. We killed it. Then we went up. Tank tried to aim the beams, to not fuck over the group that's upstairs. But then after every big intermission, you got extra ads, and they seemed to spawn wherever they felt like, kind of around the room, which I thought was kind of interesting because you no longer could just slam in one place and go down and smash ads. You kind of had to split your DPS while you went down there. I don't know if you experienced the same thing.
Yeah, it seemed a bit RNG. Like that the spawning, at least in what we were watching, seemed to just was like pure random. Like our first ad spawn could be like on any of the 4 platforms in this room, and just from there too. Like even when you got additional ads, like we had some times where the additional ad spawned like right next to the pair that always spawns.
Yeah.
And then we had other times where the additional ad spawned across the room from the pair.
Now we had the
like,
exact same.
yeah. And so what we ended up doing is we ended up sending someone with some like sort of CC available to them, because the extra ads that spawn, they spawn, what are they called? The harbingers? Yeah. They manifest these little horrors, and these are just little mobs that try and run into the boss that they heal the boss, is it? Or what to do? They do,
AoE the raid.
yeah, AoE the raid and give the boss a damage done increase is what they do.
Yeah.
So obviously those hitting the boss are bad. So we would like a hunter with binding shot or like a druid with Ursouls, whoever's in the down group, if there was a bad spawn, they would be assigned to run across to the bad spawn and make sure those little ads don't reach the boss while everyone else is killing the other two ads.
Yeah. Now we did similar. We had people run left and right and try and nuke down the ads. We didn't do too much with the CC. Should have, but didn't. But the one thing I kind of liked with it was just the you kind of have to make weird groups. I think either with CC or like each group having a dedicated 1 or 2 DPS with extremely bursty single target that can also, you know, run over if it's a bad spawn and kind of solo it potentially. Because it felt like we were, whenever it spawned on the opposite side, even if we CC'd the ads, we rarely had time to kill all the ads. And yeah, the more ads you got, so if you didn't kill all the ads, the next time you went down, the next group was going to have a much harder time clearing it, controlling the ads and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely want to try and it's going to be a balancing act, right? And what it reminds me of is Anduin actually when we were talking about it, because like you've got to learn you've got to balance the two groups, right? Such that you have enough damage in both to fit your situations, and then the down group, the first down group's got to spend time learning. Okay, how do we manage these ads? How do we kill them fast enough? Meanwhile, the up group has also got to learn their little dance because there's all these circles spawning underneath those players while they're up. And you don't obviously want to run out of space. You don't want to cut other people off. And so they've got to learn that. And then you switch it. And now the previous down groups got to learn the dance. The previous up groups got to learn how to handle the ads.
Right. No, I can see that, and it seems like you said it does remind of Anduin, especially with the standing up frontal to get down to
Yeah.
nuke down the ads.
Less
I
complicated
don't know
for
if
sure. But yeah.
just a little bit. Uh,
Janosch,
I
push
don't know
the
what
raid, my friend.
approach
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
had for the tentacle spawnings on the upstairs groups. So we always tried to have the two groups on opposite side a lot of the time. So when one group went down, the other group was on the opposite side of the platform for the tentacles, but also to steer the beam. But then the upstairs people that did the tentacle, because it seemed like you could either, stutter step, drop two step ones, drop two step ones. So my thinking is you either do that as the entire group, just stack as one and move, spawn two, move, spawn two, move. But it might be overkill for a heroic boss for sure.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
don't know
And
what you tried with that.
so we started doing that, but then someone brought up the mythic mechanic. And so the mythic mechanic is basically 6 yard AoEs on players. So we don't know the timing of it. And so we were like, okay, let's assume that because of this mythic mechanic, we will not be able to like Council of Blood the mechanic, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
stutter stepping as a group. And so we went off the stutter stepping as a group and just started like making a line across the platform, like kind of like we're spread across the length or the width, I guess, of the individual platform we're on, and we just like stutter step across the platform. So we're still 6 yards apart, but no one's getting, murdered or run over by these explosions.
That makes sense. I guess you could also, but that might be hard with how the ads are spawning, but you could also potentially just have a spread, everyone just spreads around.
Yeah, and you do a
Like
little
when
like
one group
circle.
goes down, then everyone just spreads around.
Yeah, because with the two steps you're talking about, what you could do in theory is bounce back and forth between like two spots, maybe a third spot if you're a coward.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could technically keep all those circles in like a very small radius for an individual player.
Yeah, I did something like that during testing where I did it in a square.
Yeah.
So I dropped one, then backpedal, dropped one, went to the right, dropped one, went forward. And it worked as a melee, so you didn't lose uptime because for it's kind of a slim, like normally these fights have way more melee range. Like if you take Volcross, you could stand in China and hit
Yeah.
the boss.
Yeah.
But this one you can't, which was kind of annoying with the tentacles. But I get it. It's a difficulty in itself, I guess, because if you could just max range it as melee as well, it probably wouldn't be a mechanic.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Again, it's probably one of those bosses that's not going to be super difficult in terms of tuning, but it's still always cool to see what groups come up with in terms of strategy to handle mechanics like that.
One thing though is, I don't know, I really like this fight, so it might be one of those where I wish it was later in the tier.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it could be cool to make it harder. I know a few fights in a murder cell I had that feeling like this should have been a later fight so they could tune it up. I'm trying to remember which one right off the bat, but I remember thinking that when we were doing the raid. Gotta go check back with their
yeah.
care world.
Rashan is like the big one for me. Like if Rashan and Magmarax had switched spots,
Yeah,
that would have been cool.
that is true. Oh yeah, it was not necessarily that they were in the wrong spot, but I feel like Laradar and Nimue deserved way more than what they got because those fights were really cool. I mean, some people hated Nimue, um, or Naimyu as some people say, but I'm saying Nimue. That's
The
the hill
movie.
I will die on. Uh, but both Laradar and Nimue for me was really cool fights. Laradar especially was fun, but it posed no difficulty whatsoever due to tuning. So I guess technically that's more of a tuning fail. But they could also have moved them further down, I guess.
Yeah,
Then again, they have Smolder on Tendril, but I think I'd rather have a wall on like Laradar than Smolder on.
yeah.
Smolder on was great though, don't get me wrong.
The Mirror Soul tuning is definitely a hotly contested debate because arguably they had a couple wing end bosses, which are a bit easy, like you're saying, in Laradar and Nimue. And then they had the last couple final bosses, which were probably a bit overtuned in
Just a wee
Tindril and
bit.
Fireack. Yeah. It's
I gotta say though, I think I just love being punished. But Tendril, man, is probably one of the best fights I've ever done.
yeah.
Before he got nerfed. It was
I'm
so
right there
fun.
with you. I really enjoyed Tindril progression, but this might get you shot by the WoW community.
Right? It's too difficult. I mean, that's the thing. I really, really like difficult bosses. I hate wiping 400 times on a boss if it's a bullshit mechanic, like Calandris.
Yeah, if it
It was
feels like
fun, but it was fucking annoying wiping on those bombs over and over again.
yeah, like if you're not making progression and it feels, you know, like a slog and RNG, it's tough for sure. Which to be fair, again, Tindril was like that to a lot of guilds because of how
Yeah.
long it took them to nerf it, which I think is a fair criticism. But I did enjoy the boss and its initial, I guess a lot of our prog was actually after the first nerf.
Oh yeah, they're the same.
Yeah, but I enjoyed that version of the boss personally.
Yeah, no, it was great. Same with Firak. I thought was really, really fun, especially as a DPS. Can't say for tank, but it's one of those fights. I'm a sucker for fights that are somewhat scripted, but there's a lot of things happening. You know, after 20 seconds you move here, then after 20 seconds you move there, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's always something happening, and there's a lot of planned movement that's not annoying movement. You just gotta do it.
Yeah.
Same thing was in Nyalotha with Furry Furry of Nasaf. I love that fight too for those reasons. And Farak was very much like that. After you've done like 100 pulls, I mean, I think I can still to this day remember every single global I do on that fight and exactly where I pop my defensives. And oh, I love fights like that.
Yeah, yeah, just like kind of figuring out the puzzle for your
Yeah,
spec to deal with all the different mechanics. Yeah, definitely really really fun.
and it
Anything else
does
on this
too.
boss?
Let's see. I'm gonna read through the abilities a wee bit.
I think there was the one big AoE where you had to like get away from the current
Right, right,
platform.
right. So that was the start of the phase two, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
if they call it that. Is it gore splatter? No. Let's see what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, the gore splatter I think is the right one.
Yeah, yeah. So that one was pretty. I mean, a pretty cool mechanic. It just forced you to run out. I mean, it wasn't much more to it. What we did mainly for that one was we tried to group up before. So we had during phase one, you know, when one group was killing the ads, the other group was running around. We tried to time it so that after the beam, both groups kind of met up and then could run out or gate over together. And then when phase one recontinued, we were all stacked. That was mainly because we were trying to see if you could get them to spawn closer when everyone was stacked. And it did seem like that, but it could just be RNG. Because it seemed whenever we were stacked in one location, it wouldn't spawn like on the opposite, only on the left or right to us, or right on top of us. But it could also be complete RNG.
Yeah, and that actually might be true. I need to go back and look because I don't remember anything spawning ever like directly opposite us besides like individual ads when there's additional ads
Yeah,
spawning. Like sometimes that happened, but I don't remember the two main ads of the spawn ever being directly across from us. So maybe it is only within one platform left or right.
it could be. So that's what we tried doing with that. But otherwise, I don't think there's much to talk about with the big circle. I mean, it's a big circle. You run out or you die. I still like it though. It just forces you to. A lot of players are gonna die to greed there, so that's gonna be hilarious. You know, the warlock that just needs to finish that cast before they press the gateway or their demonic circle that they forgot to pre-place, and then they die.
Yep, yep, classic. That's a classic.
It's gonna be me. I can blame warlocks, but it's gonna be me.
All right.
Then it was right the beams. We talked a little bit about the beam mechanic that is right before the big circle. Uh, I kind of like that one since tanks seem to be able to control that fully since it always spawned out left and right of him.
Yeah, his
So
arms
you could
turn into
always try and.
beams.
Did you notice if he only went one direction? Because I forgot to check for that if he ever
Yes.
swapped between clockwise or counterclockwise.
I believe he always spun counterclockwise.
Yeah,
So
because then you could
consistent.
always aim the beam so it doesn't. So it's like in front of the group that's upstairs, so they never have to really get chased by the beam. That makes sense.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do, and it depends on where your second ad spawn is. So, like for example,
Yeah,
we had
for
times
sure.
where the second ad spawn, like I said, was like to the left of the group, whereas the first ad spawn is to the right of the group, so they're directly across from each other. And in that situation, what we did is we tried to aim the beam such that it was like just behind where the group started, so it would rotate into them, but gave them enough time to kill the ads there, and that would mean that they could just run straight to the final ad with no beam in their way because that beam had left already. So it kind of depends on where those ads
And that makes
actually end up
that makes a lot of
spawning.
sense to aim it more in favor of the ad team versus the upstairs team because they, I mean, the only thing they got going on is the tentacles, and sure, that can be really messy if the beams are bad. But they can also, you know, position themselves differently. If they see that the beam is going to be a little wonky, they could just, you know, sidestep. Whereas the downstairs team doesn't really have that option unless they've killed the first caster, because the melee add the Lost Watcher, that one you can bring with you, but the
Yeah,
caster you have to kill.
yeah. It made sense. Yeah, just to like literally beams only care about the ad group, and everyone else can just kind of deal with it. You know?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I don't know if there's anything else now on the fight though.
I think that's it. Yeah, because the only mythic mechanic from what I can see is that 6 yard AOE on players.
Yeah, the blood curdle.
Yeah.
Ugh. After fester, I gotta read the tooltip here. Transfuses black blood into all players. After festering for 5 sec, each player's blood is roiled. That is a choice of word. Inflicting 1.7 million shadow damage to players. Yeah, okay. But that one doesn't necessarily combine with the tentacles.
Correct. Yeah, we have no idea on the timing of that cast, so maybe it actually doesn't impact you doing your little dance, and you can just Council of Blood it. But maybe it
I kind of
does.
think that would be I kind of think that would be more fun if they don't overlap, because then you have two different types of mechanics to deal with. So, you know, you deal with the tentacles in one way, then immediately after or right before, you got to spread. So you
Yeah.
do the tentacles, then you spread, and then you do, which could be more fun than having to deal with both at the same time, because that kind of just sounds awful.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they actually end up doing when, because this boss will be tested on Mythic in a couple
Yeah.
weeks, I believe. So we'll see then. Yeah, if it's going to be like a spread at the end situation, a spread before situation, but who knows? Who knows?
Rawr.
It will be interesting. Then I guess we can move on. I don't know if we want to do all the ones we tested first and then go to the untested. I think that makes sense because we have more info on the ones we
Yeah,
tested.
yeah, yeah. We can go. Let's
Um,
skip to Rashanan.
Rashan. So before we go over it, what did you think about this fight? Did you like it, hate it, or indifferent?
For Rashanan or for Bloodbound Horror?
Rashan.
Oh, Rashanan. So I didn't hate it. Um, I'm not sure how I fully felt about it yet. It was a bit odd. The platform was pretty buggy itself. We were getting a lot of no path available errors and stuff like that. If you were one of those
I
like leap
saw,
classes or charges, yeah,
I think it was preheat that kept shimmering through it.
yeah. But
And I
that's
think you could rescue through it as well.
yeah, that's like an easy fix though. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that'll be
yeah.
fixed before launch, so I'm not too worried about that. The tank buster was basically irrelevant. It was kind of interesting in the sense that basically the unmitigated damage you do from the tank buster is now a dot on you. So it was kind of interesting. So you want to, it incentivizes you to press your defensive buttons correctly, but it didn't seem to be doing a lot. I really like the wave mechanic. I think the
Oh
wave
yeah.
mechanic is super cool. Same as
Uh,
the dungeon boss, the Dawnbreaker, but there's two of them now on
right.
heroic, and I believe there's three on mythic. That is the mythic mechanic. There's a third
Ooh.
wave.
How the does it go the same way though? That's the because I could see it going you know, if those two go vertically, that one goes horizontally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One goes either forward or I guess backwards all the time, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe they'll do two lefts and one right every time or something like that, and then you have to actually have someone eat a wave tick or something like that. I have no idea. But again, another one of
Or
those bosses.
staggered.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, that too. But yeah, it's another one of those bosses where we're gonna have to wait and see how that actually functions on Mythic when this boss gets tested. But that could potentially be very interesting.
You know, I love that mechanic for many reasons. One of them being it looks absolutely incredible and it's very well telegraphed. As long as you know how it works, it's very easy to deal with. Since it's always, you know, thick sides, safe side, faded side, bad side. But in the even though it's very easy to know how it works, when you're in there and get the mechanic and you're both stacked, and you know one starts running to the left and you do as well, and then you gotta swap directions between. There's a lot of panic and chaos that can come from that,
Oh
which I
yeah.
think is fun because when you actually do it correctly, it feels really good. Feels good mechanic. But it's also gonna wipe so many groups, so many pugs. Oh, it's
Yeah.
gonna be so fun to
If
see.
if I had to guess, this is gonna be the step up of the initial bosses.
It's
Just
gonna be
yeah,
fun.
just from that mechanic alone.
But then we have, let's see here, I gotta find my own footage. Uh, so just going over the fight. First, we had the well, we had the wave, but then you had all the poison pools that kept spawning. Did you find any pattern behind how those puddles spawn? Not the ones that go around the players, but the ones that just seem to spawn on the floor, swirlies.
Let me see if I remember them. I'm fast forwarding through mine to see where they are.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I haven't said something wrong here. Maybe it's just the intermission. Yeah, maybe I'm
Oh, just
thinking
the inner.
wrong because
Yeah,
you check the intermission.
yeah.
Yeah, those. Did you do you think they're completely RNG or if there's any rhyme or reason? Not that it's gonna be, you know, something really difficult to spawn with, but it was always as you're running towards the boss, there's a billion swirls coming at you. It looked to be just completely RNG.
Yeah, at least pretty heavily RNG. Potentially, it's like so Forge Master in Altheris is one of these where half of the swirlies are like random under players and half of the swirlies are
Yeah.
random entirely. So it could be like a mixture like that, maybe.
And there was also, now rewatching the footage, there are a few, like there's tons of green and a few like bigger yellowy swirls as well
Yes.
spawning. Gotta check the journal. Were they any different or just hurts more?
That I'm actually not sure, but I assumed they were different because I noticed those two and I was like, maybe they're like web AoEs and the green ones are the toxic ones. I actually can't see because I'm running past them. It looks like they're still. Oh no, you know what? You're right. Those actually do leave behind acid puddles. The yellow ones leave behind permanent puddles and the green ones don't.
Ah, okay. And then again, the question comes to mind, is there a way to bait those?
That is
Unsure.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking
Uh,
here and it looks like a couple of the yellow ones just spawn not on players. At least, yeah, you have a couple here that are not really near players.
because looking at my footage right now, like we're running on the right side of the platform, if you will, and they're spawning on the left side, opposite, like still on the same bridge, if you will, or what you want to
Yeah.
call it, platform. But we're on the right side near the edge, and they spawn on the left side near the edge. So, um,
It looks like it's just random area
looks like,
denial then.
yeah, get screwed mainly. Uh, but otherwise, I think we bounced a little bit here, or I did. But if we take it from the start, so the main thing we had was the waves, and then you got the white circles that spawned the web, and the green circle around players that spawned the acid pools on the ground. I don't know if you approached it in any special way. We kind of tried in the end having all net or web players run to one side, all poison to another side to have those separated, so to not use up too much space because we never knew which side Rashan would fly to during the intermission.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing too, right? That the intermission seems to be random, at least from what we saw.
Yeah,
Maybe there is a way to force it that's not super clear, but it did appear that Rashnan would just, kind of pick up and fly to a random spot on the
wherever he
platform
felt
whenever
like.
they decided. Yeah. Just wherever they
Okay, I'm gonna
wanted
go here.
to. So because of that, we tried to fill up, at least like on pole, we tried to fill up the area behind us on pole because we
That makes
know
sense.
for a fact like nothing's coming back there, right? So
Yeah,
like because sometimes after two flights, Roshan would be back on either immediately left or immediate right where you started here, but didn't appear like they ever actually flew back to the initial starting position. So it was kind of safe to fill up like the back and that area a little bit initially. And so I think we tried to drop our initial webbing like behind us back there a little bit, and then, of course, the waves would go out and it would clear a lot of those and make them into the acid puddles from the rolling acid. And then
right. Because the waves, they did they clear the web
yeah,
or
yeah, the
yeah, right.
waves turn the webs into the acid puddles.
Ah. And did you notice any like despawn timers for the puddles?
The acid puddles, I think in the journal it says like yeah, it says 10 minutes in the journal. So
Oh, damn.
which is the
Yeah,
enrage, by the way.
then you definitely want to care with space,
Yeah,
especially in Mythic. So I
yeah,
guess it could be a case depending on how much it hurts, where you try and stack it as much as possible, potentially move into or close to existing puddles, and then, like you said, fill up a lot in the back in the beginning, and then just try and I guess fill up any area where range and melee doesn't necessarily need to stand. Because if you're at, say, he's jumped away to a new platform, you can still have the entire raid right in front of him, stacked. Because then you can have the waves go out to the side, raid is safe, and if you get the web or the poison, you can run out to the sides and drop it. But if you drop it, anywhere where the boss will potentially be, then you're kind of screwed.
yeah, yeah, because you're pre-putting puddles where you don't
Yeah,
necessarily want them. Yeah,
but it's interesting, like I said, because it's RNG where he's gonna where he's gonna
yeah,
land. So you can't really plan. You just have to deal with it mid fight. Like, oh, he went there. Okay, then we have X and Y positioning. Oh, he went there. Now we got to do this or that.
Yeah.
Uh, it seemed like he had like what 6 different locations he could fly between. I think.
Yeah, there's the starting spot. There was the 2 at the very far back, and then there was 2 more on each the left and the right. So yeah, that would be 6 other spots outside of the starting spot.
Yeah, unless he has more that he didn't feel like
Maybe,
showing.
maybe. Actually, you know what? That's a
Uh,
lie, because he actually one time went directly behind like the starting spot for us, I think. On
yeah, I think he's done that for us as well. Like he had the starting position, but on the opposite side.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Man has a lot of places.
Go wherever he pleases.
Um, and yeah, right. You said the tank mechanic wasn't too much
No,
to deal with.
no, very, very kind of generic tank mechanic. The webs, though, the webs actually had a few interesting things regarding them.
Yeah.
So when you basically when the webs go out, it's not just that puddle on the ground, right? It's also one, it's gonna root anyone else in your puddle, or sorry, tether them. It's gonna tether anyone else in that puddle. And basically this tether is you're kind of stuck to the middle of your puddle and you're trying to run out of it. And when you do actually break the radius of your puddle, it snaps and it does raid damage.
Oh.
So
Yeah, I
that's
didn't.
yeah, it wasn't too bad on heroic though. Actually, I think it was almost no damage on heroic. It was not tuned up very high.
I think that's why I didn't notice that mechanic. I noticed that it spawned like a webbing in it, and I think on Mythic you have to kill the cocoon, right?
Uh,
That spawns in the webbing.
I think that's a
Or
different mechanic. I think that
might be.
yeah, that is a mechanic. That the mythic mechanic to the webs from heroic is whenever you actually snap your tether, you also do a 5-yard AoE, and if you hit anyone with that 5-yard AoE, they get tethered. So the tether doesn't actually fully break, it just transfers to them, is my understanding. So the breakers need to make sure that they're breaking, not near anybody else.
I get retethered. Yeah, there it is. Huh. That's kind of interesting. And it does, pose a couple of complications with how you gotta place everything, especially the webs, but the raid as well, depending on where the boss jumps. Because, yeah, you gotta have space to drop the web, but you also gotta have space to snap it without retethering, all the while, not dying from poison, not getting swarmed by the ads, or potentially, because I think it was at one point they kind of overlapped with the waves, or maybe it
Yeah,
was the
I think it was
poison
like
circles that did.
yeah, it came out like just after the waves or something like that. So you had to like wait to spread out initially for the waves to fully go, and then you could move.
It could be interesting.
Yeah, and then there is that mechanic
Could
you
be
were
horrible.
talking about on Mythic, where it looks like the boss shoots out additional 3-yard AoEs, which stun you in webs for 2 minutes. And those, if you do get hit, you can damage them to remove players.
Okay,
But
yeah,
it's
that was the one I was thinking about with
yeah, seems like that's
bees
fully
in the
avoidable
webs.
though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna avoid it. It's extra targets. Need, need that AoE. But then we had the tiny spiderlings.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I'm trying to remember what they spawned from. Was it just
Yeah, it just like marks a few players, and then yeah, they do a little AoE
right?
around them.
Oh yeah,
And
it's the green. It's the green circles, right?
yes, yeah, the green circles are the ads, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
initially they're hitting the person they actually spawn on. And then when you get them to below 50%, then they can be tanked, is my understanding.
Hold on, gotta slay a mosquito here. It's murder on stream.
Oh no. Killing
Poor
bugs in
mosquito.
game and outside of game. What the hell?
I just hate bugs, man. But those spiderlings were kind of. I kind of like the, get some crazy uncapped AoE, if you will, during the fight that you still have to control. It adds a lot to the fight. Plus, who doesn't like to slam down AoEs?
Yeah, just something for the DPSers out there. Go ads, let's go. And it's a lot of ads too, right? Yeah, it's like 3,
Yeah.
4 ads per player, and there's like 5 or 6 players targeted, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be mandatory with grips for that, but it would surely help with any kind of, grippy hands or sigils for that.
Yeah, I wonder how often they spawn actually. So here, this spawns at like 2:30. Let's back up a little and see the spawn before that. Uh, they die so quickly. It looks like the spawns are about maybe like a minute and a half apart. Is what it's looking like.
It seemed to be right, kind of right before it flies away.
Yeah. Right when the boss is getting close to 100 energy. But yeah, that is funny too. Having this many ads spawn, even though they're low health, is a curse for low mythic guilds because everyone's just gonna roll up to the boss in AOE spec to do the
Yeah.
ads.
Plus, you're gonna have all the DPSers making arguments about why they have to use AoE talents for this fight, where in actuality you should just play single target and whatever class can do both should handle that.
Yeah, especially because they
But
have like
that's not
no
gonna happen.
HP. Like you don't
Yeah.
even need anyone to do cleave, really. They'll just die naturally.
But you will have BM hunters going, maybe it's easier for them to have multi-shot now, but it will go multi-shot. You will have MM hunters going full multi-shot build. Okay, because we need it for the boss time.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
But overall, I kind of like the fight. It's hectic. It has some fun mechanics, especially the wave. Um, is great. I really like that one.
Yeah, the wave is such a cool mechanic to me. I think has there ever been a mechanic that's been, done that way specifically? I'm not sure there has been. It's like
Not that I can remember, and definitely not anyone that's been nearly as visually
yeah, the
pleasing
visuals
as
is
that
really
one.
cool. Speaking of visuals, I mean, we'll talk to it maybe when we get to Nexus Princess, but visuals in a
Yeah.
lot of these fights are crazy.
I mean, they've stepped up their game overall in War Within. I feel like both in dungeons and raids. Like, I don't know if if it's because Microsoft bought them up and someone went, "Hey, maybe players want to see what the fuck they're doing." But that's what they're doing in War Within. Because I mean, you can actually like doing Stonewall, doing the massive pull before last boss with all the charging mobs. And you just have a giant purple arrow, and you can easily see exactly where they're going. So even if you pull 50 mobs and you're AoEing on top of it, you'll always see where they're charging, where their frontal's going, and the same in the raid. And I love that they're doing it, and I'm pissed that I haven't done it before. Although I have one gripe with the wave, it's that it doesn't roll off the sides.
Oh, does it just
So if you
disappear? I
check
didn't
on the
really look.
no, it's the wave will just travel in the air outside the platform and then just you know go away. And it's same in
Oh.
Dawnbreaker when you're in the ship, you can see the wave going in the air behind the ship, just going away. I'm like, as soon as it's not on ground, it should fall down or despawn that part. I mean, if we have to complain.
Yeah, no, we
Uh,
gotta
the,
we gotta find the actual like most nitpicky things to complain about, and then when that's the case, it's a pretty decent boss fight. Yeah.
or as Chat said here, the wave doesn't fall off the side because Azeroth isn't flat. So
Ah.
confirmed. Then we have the forgot one mechanic, which is the intermission mechanic where everyone stacks, which seemed to be just in front of the boss
Oh, the
always. So
yoink.
it's yeah, it didn't target any player. It seemed it was always just in front of the boss. But a fun thing happened. I gotta recheck it on my stream here. Maybe I can pop it up on Discord, or if you can take up my stream and check for a second.
Yeah.
Stupid mosquito. God, I'm getting eaten alive here. No, so we had most of the raid stacked in it. And yet we got joinked away.
Yeah, it seems like you need to have like almost your full raid in it to actually get rid of the massive yoink on it for some reason. Or
Yeah,
is it?
because when everyone was there, most of the time you got joined like half a yard, and it was like, oh, okay, as long as you don't stand on the edge, you're fine. But here we had, I mean, at least 10, 12 players, and we just
Yeah. Yeah, the
We just get sent away.
the one interesting thing though is unlike the first boss is you can actually have a single player in this effect even on Mythic, and you can actually immune it entirely, the damage, because it's like a 40 million hit.
Yeah.
But if the immunity isn't specifically ice block or bubble, that also makes you immune to knockbacks, that player still gets absolutely launched. But we found that, for
The rest of the
example,
group.
yeah, Priest Life Grip, if you are super fast, you can life grip that player back to the platform. Also, Demon Hunters, Havoc Demon Hunters with Nether Walk, they can backflip and like glide back to the platform as well, that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
technically, and this is actually something you can do because I said there's no minimum soak requirement, and I wonder if they do add a minimum soak requirement because of this. But if you have mages, if you have paladins, they can easily just immune it, and if you have other immunities like Turtle, like Netherwalk, they can immune it. And if they're quick, they can disengage or they can get life gripped. And it is interesting. And then you don't need to worry about, I only half our raid soaked this. We just lost 10 people because they all got sent off the edge.
I wonder how that's gonna play out. I would assume that they do Terros with it. That immunity that like it doesn't count if you immune it. You don't count as a player. Because I remember that from Terros, if you were targeted by the slam circle, because I ran away as a hunter and popped turtle, and then the entire raid got decimated. And the wording would suggest that because it says if the spell fails to strike any targets, all players suffer the full
Yeah,
effect. And that
potentially.
could be if you're immune, you don't get hit.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're gonna actually like maybe that was a bug, it wasn't working correctly, or maybe again there's supposed to be a minimum soak on it. But as
Yeah.
of right now, it is immutable by a single person, and even on Mythic, it looks like. Yeah, because the wording doesn't
That'll be fun.
change from heroic to Mythic.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see World First Guilds, adopt that strat and get those insane plays and life grips and stuff to combat it. I guess you could potentially gateway it if you're fast enough.
Yeah, yeah, potentially. I don't think we tried using a gateway, but that also could be something that works.
Oh, I kind of hope that's not a thing though. I don't know. I personally don't like immune meta things in raids. I will do it when it's easier and if it's possible, of course, because I want to kill bosses. But I'm always most of the time I want to play the fights kind of how Blizzard intended them to be played. So I like when they put stops to immunes and things like that. Of
Yeah.
course, you should be able to use immunes, but you shouldn't be able to skip entire mechanics with them. I think.
Yeah,
But
no,
some might be of
definitely.
other. I think I just got damaged from was it Tomb of
Yep,
Sargeras?
Tomb, yeah. Tomb of Soak Garrus, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of immunes there. Oh god, good raid though.
Yeah, I think that was this boss, right? That was pretty sure that was everything.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was an interrupt on the intermission, but interrupted. Uh, otherwise, it's not much to it. I guess we can move on to Brood Twister then.
Yeah, boss number, what is this, 5? Yeah, boss number 5. This one was cool. It was like, this boss to me, it did give Broodkeeper vibes, but like if Broodkeeper was good.
Right? It's yeah, I think this one did the Brood fight way better. This is how I kind of thought Broodkeeper was gonna be during the mythic testing, because I assumed, different. The pathing wouldn't be based on where the ad spawns. It would be based on what kind of ads you want them to spawn. But that kind of wasn't the case.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just which would have been better. And I'm trying to remember if it worked anyway like that, but I remember during testing, like you could see the eggs had different elements to them. There was shadow eggs, fire eggs, and everything, but that ended up just being what kind of ads spawned, not from the eggs, but from the actual fight. They
Yeah.
kind of went with whatever elemental side you had. And I thought it would have been a way more interesting approach to have the eggs do that. So you're like, oh, okay, this egg has this type of ad. So you know exactly what this broody worm is doing. So I really like this fight. I'm very hyped to try it out. Um, and it was a lot of different approaches. I mean, in the end, there will always be a, oh, this is the best.
Yeah, yeah.
But during testing, you could tackle it in a lot of different ways, which I like.
Yeah, the whole like build the boss is kind of there, and it's there even more so on Mythic because there's like these three, they're not quadrant, whatever, the room's split in three,
Yeah,
and because there's three types of ads, and in each of the areas, one of the ad types is more dominant in that area. So there's an area where the little ads are, I think there's like six of them. And then there's three of the other types of ads. There's an area where the medium-sized worms, there's six of them, and the other ads have three. And then there's the final area where the big tank ads have six, and there's three of the previous two. So it's kind of interesting. You can
yeah,
choose where to start, and that's really impactful on Mythic, because when you start in an area, the ads that are dominant in that area get empowered, I believe, for the rest of the fight. Yeah, the
hmm.
catalyzed mutation thing.
Oh,
So on
check
heroic,
that.
basically, if you ever empowered anything, it was basically a wipe, because it puts this massive dot on you. And in terms of like how that happens is like the boss, she's gonna run to like the nearest container, and again, there's one container in each of the areas of the room, and she does this
Yeah,
like shortly after pull. So you kind of pull her to the area you want her to start in, and she's gonna start spewing out this purple goo from that thing. And basically, if any of the eggs are unhatched and touch that, they get empowered. And that was kind of hit and miss for me, because this was the part of the fight where it's like, this is kind of taking away choice, because you're kind of
yeah,
forced to clear the eggs closest to the purple goo to make sure they don't get
yeah,
empowered, and you don't actually have a ton of time to actually like build what ad waves you want, you know?
yeah. One thing we tried with that was to I don't think that's how it's going to end up playing out, but we allowed it to empower certain eggs to focus on other clearing other eggs, because some were, less dangerous when empowered, and some you could stay like the worm.
Yeah.
um, if you empowered that one and healers were prepared for it and had cooldowns rolling, you could easily out heal it, at least on heroic, and you could still nuke it down before the purple stuff really got too much in the way. Melee could have quite a lot of uptime before they had to run away, so it's quite easy to nuke it down and heal through the dot. But I don't know if that's going to be something you end up playing around, because it did seem like you had the exact number of circles for the exact number of eggs, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, it's, you have exactly the same on heroic anyways.
Yeah,
So you have to get all your clears, otherwise something's getting empowered, because you also only have, what is it, like 3 sets of them? Right? Yeah, because there's 12 eggs per thing. You only get 3
yeah,
sets, and if you ever miss anything, then that mob's getting empowered. And like I said, on heroic, you can heal through a stack, no problem. On mythic, I believe it's an absurd number. Let me see. Where is this number called?
is it which one is it? Is it the worm?
Well, it's
Poison
just
burst.
it's just a
No,
thing when
that's
they
the
get
interrupt.
empowered. Yeah, let me see if I can.
Is it the rupture then?
It might
No,
be
no, 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 that's the circle, I think.
uh oh yeah, that's the circle. Where it's when they get empowered.
Is it catalyzed mutation? Although I'm checking mythic. Yeah, but we were doing that. Yeah, okay, so you have mutation necrotic, mutation ravenous, and mutation accelerated. So I guess it's one of those. Let's see here. So the vicious worm. That's just cast speed, and yeah, no, that's just their buff. Is it sanguine overflow? I think it
Uh
could be that.
oh, here it's caustic reaction.
Ah, yeah,
Yes, it's under sanguine
gotcha.
overflow. So it's 2 million damage every 3 seconds on mythic.
One heal?
Yeah. So that ability is too powerful, I think, to ever
Yeah,
actually allow you to let an ad get hit. And like I said too, like the ads are going to be empowered throughout that fight automatically, depending on which part of the room you start in, right? Because if you start in like the
Yeah.
little ad area, for the rest of the fight, all the little ads are empowered. You will never not kill a unempowered little ad, and even if you break them, they're going to be empowered, right?
That's very interesting, though. I think that could be fun because, like you talked about earlier, it gives you, well, at least the illusion of choice of where you want to begin and how you want to tackle it. I mean, in the end, there's going to be meta strats for
Yeah.
it, so um, but that's going to be interesting to see. So if we go through the other mechanics here from it, I'm just going to pop back to heroic. So you had the experimental dosage, which target the 4 players, and they are the ones that break the eggs, which did a little dot to it. See if I can find it.
Yeah. And then you also have the web debuffs as well, which is always going to be fun. It's like a magic
Oh yeah.
root, but if you cleanse it and you're on another player, they get rooted. So you got to, get spread out and
Mm,
away from people before the actual dispel goes out.
right. And then we had the so the worms needed to be interrupted. The big spiders just needed to be tanked, and then the small spiders needed to be controlled. Because we noticed quite fast that when when you didn't control them, shit got out of hand real fast with the infest, which is
Yeah.
kind of a nice homage to Gahun. I mean, it
Yep.
is a Gahun worm, so it's still nice to bring that kind of mechanic back.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting when we tried sometimes breaking three of the small ones at the same time and having 3 different location with cooldown or crowd control and things like that. But I guess if you have a grippy tank, you can do those kinds of things. Without it, it might be an issue. So this might be a 3 tank fight or a um, 2 tank and a blood DK kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that. I think you'll find other ways. Like having the mass
Yeah.
grip for sure is really useful if you ever do like a double little guy break. A triple little guy break is a little, I think, insane probably on Mythic unless the positions of the ads change. But other than that, like abilities like Binding Shot, abilities like Ursul's Vortex are really really powerful on those
Yeah.
mobs, I think. And also something else we noticed, which I assume is a bug. I don't think it's intentional, but if you stunned the little ads during their cast instantly, they actually just wouldn't recast
Hmm.
for some reason on testing. Again, I assume it's a
I'd
bug.
assume that that's a bug. Yeah. I would assume at least, but I do think there could be, a potential for a knock/grip strat and do because you can like organize the raid cooldowns in a different way and DPS cooldowns if you do it that way. So you
Yeah.
do one break where you have potentially 3 big spiders and a worm, and then the next pull where you don't perhaps have the same kind of DPS, you do a triple small egg, and you can just have knocks. Yeah, if you have I don't know where it is in the room, but one of the sides had, I think it was 3 or 4 small ads or clusters of eggs. So then you could clear all those 3, have knockbacks on the side that knocks those 2 in towards the cluster in the middle, and then you grip. And I don't think that would be too hard to execute, really, because they spawn stacked. So as long as they knock them instantly into a grip, it should be kind of easy.
Yeah, and then you
And
can
then
rip
you just
like a
get rid
big
of that.
stun.
Yeah, and then you just get rid of that element from that side entirely.
Yeah. I think the only side that actually works on though is the little ad side.
Yeah,
Be-
yeah, yeah. The other one only has like 2 of them, and they're
yeah.
way far apart.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like doing that kind of stuff if you want to mass do one type only ever works in one of the 3 areas just because
Yeah.
of numbers and stuff, which is, and then on top of that, you also have to consider too, is doing that going to mess up, and are we going to get an ad accidentally um hit by the puddle, which is again
Yeah.
kind of stimmying the creativity here on this boss fight a little bit. But again, at the end of the day, everyone's gonna go look at Liquid or Echo and who killed this boss
Yeah.
first, and then just copy their exact pathing. So there is that,
Uh,
but the idea of the boss and the build a boss stuff is always still very interesting to me.
yeah. But I mean, it further to go off topics slightly. Uh, like the best part of raid testing for me is figuring out, going in blind, having no idea,
Yeah,
and having
yeah.
no one done it before who can say this is the way to do it. That is always the most fun in raiding I've ever had, is always figuring stuff out. I really wish they. I don't think they're ever gonna, release blind raids. But I know Liquid Max talked a bit about it after Amir Drasil raced the world first, that he wanted tournament realms. That might not, be when a raid actually opens up. It could be in between raids, but a tournament realm with really cranked bosses that we haven't tested that they can do. It will be mainly for, the top
Like
guilds
outside
to
the race
hash
to
it out
world
in.
first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
And it wouldn't at all coincide within retail. Your gear doesn't matter. You just have template stuff, can do whatever you want. You go into that realm and there's really cracked fights, and the race to world first guilds can hash it out. And any other player could potentially go there also, but they're probably not going to stand a chance at all.
You know, that
But it
could
would
be
still,
interesting.
for me, even if I wouldn't have a stand a snowball's chance in hell to kill it, I would think it's super fun either to just watch them figure stuff like that out, or try it ourselves and just see what we can find out. Because I don't know if you remember in Tomb of Sargeras, but Method had a completely different approach to Maiden
Yes.
contra
Yes,
to
I do
other
remember that.
guilds,
Yeah.
because they had I think the GM or AGM said that it's the approach every other guild went with was, what they hadn't intended. So Method was like, okay, we'll do it another way. And it was just really cool to see two top guilds do completely different strats, and it works. Because a lot of people are always like, oh, it's the one strat. This is how you do it.
Yeah,
Not
back in like the
necessarily.
pre-stream era of the race to world
Yeah.
first, where you would get the videos after like 5 guilds had killed the boss. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That was good. That was fun. I missed that. A little bit of mystery. I like a little bit of mystery.
That was cool, yeah.
Probably not going to happen, but it's fun to fantasize.
Uh, especially
Otherwise, I
now
don't know if
too. You get it's definitely
oh, you go
much
ahead.
nicer as a viewer now to just see all the progression, but yeah, it definitely has taken a little bit away from doing the raids.
Yeah, I mean it's split. Like I love watching Race to World First because the things they do sometimes is just insane, and it's interesting to see. But at the same time, like I said, it's really fun figuring that shit out yourself without having anyone tell you how it should be done. Like the point is kill the boss. I usually do try and do that when I make raid guides and have alternate strats, because I often talk about this strat worked for our guilds and a lot of guilds, but it might not work for your
Yeah,
guild. Your
exactly.
guild might not be great at this type of coordination. You might be better at this type. So be open to change your approach.
Yeah, and that's very important too because like there's a lot of things like yes, you can look at like the the liquid or the echo strategy, but that's not necessarily going to 100% one-to-one work for you because maybe you don't have
Yeah,
the exact same comp. Maybe you don't have the exact same like player skill on certain roles. You have it in different roles and you need to now change the assignments
yeah,
from hey, Liquid had their mage do it because their mage is I'm fired up. Maybe our
yeah,
mage is Lil Timmy, and Lil Timmy is not the best, but he's decent. But you have like a super sick hunter player or something like that, and so
yeah,
you gotta change that mechanic from being on Little Timmy to being on your hunter player. And it's definitely like thinking about how those strategies actually adjust depending on what comp you're bringing, because sometimes you're missing a somewhat important piece of the comp too, right? Like and that's just
yeah,
not something you can field, and so you gotta figure out a way to make it work for your group, and that's definitely still a very interesting portion of raid progression for me at least.
yeah. And I think I think a lot of guilds should
Or Timmy,
be
yeah.
more aware of
Shout
that,
out
that you
Timmy.
can you can actually change stuff. You can actually do stuff different. I remember in um both in Sanctum but also in not Nihilotha, what is it called, Nathria, we played without Disc Priest, which couldn't be done, they said, because
Spirit Shell, yep.
Sire Denathrius without two Disc Priests was barely doable. They said Kel'Thuzad wasn't doable without Disc Priest. And we did all of those without that. We had, same thing when we killed Tindril, we had the worst comp out of any guild has ever killed it at that time. Still worked. Just had to be a little inventive with some things.
Yeah,
Maybe it cost us, more pulls in the end, most likely, but boss died. I think that's
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 all
the
that
important part.
matters. That's all that matters.
Be a little adapt. Is
Overcome.
there anything other with the wormy worm?
I think oh, the mythic mechanic, the other one, not the
Yeah.
empowering one, is that instead of 4 circles, you are going to get 8 circles to hatch eggs,
Oh.
but eggs require 2 circles to hit them to hatch. So
Mm.
you need to Venn diagram on the egg, and to my understanding, this is a private aura.
Hmm.
So get your macro fingers ready.
Oh, private auras. Ah. But yet, I mean, it could. I like the idea of the mechanic. I like private auras. All depends on how the Blizzard executes the mechanic. Like, is it doable without a weak aura in an easy way? Then I'm perfectly like Firak intermission or Smolder on pre-nerf. Like, sure, you could. Well, not Firak. You couldn't do it. I don't remember if any guild came up with a way. I remember Dratnos talking about it weeks after Race to World First that he still hadn't figured out a way to tackle that intermission without a weak aura.
No.
Like he couldn't think of a single way to do it consistently.
Yeah, you just committed to wiping to that phase 10 to 15 times to figure out your weak aura, and then you figured it out and you never wipe there again unless someone pressed the macro wrong.
And that did happen.
Yep.
So, I mean, it all depends on how they do that mechanic. Like, if it's going to be fairly easy to sort yourself, fine. Like, if you have plenty of time. But if not, it could be kind of turbo ass to play with. Although, trying to think of it, because it's going to be. Did you notice if it targeted anything randomly or if it just RNG targets or if it preferred range or melee? I remember getting it quite a lot as melee.
I believe, and let's see here. It looks like it's very range dominant from what I'm seeing in my VOD. There are
I
melee
think
that
that
are
if it
getting
could.
it, right? But I mean, it
Yeah.
could just be an anyone but tank situation here.
Yeah, because if it's anything like the Tindril debuff kind of thing, then you could quite easily, control it by just having X amount of classes to force the circles. But yeah, it did seem random, so I don't think that's going to be the case. Then it's just going to be, either a weak or a macro or a get good kind of thing. But I think without a weak or a macro, it's going to be really annoying, or you're just gonna wipe a lot to it. Some
Yeah.
players are dealing with an ad over yonder, they get the circle, and then they're running to the closest egg, and wouldn't you know, there's two of them there. One of those doesn't run to another egg, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it depends a bit on the time you have. Also, does it say anything on how long?
It's like 6 seconds or something. Let me see here. Let me count.
Yeah.
All right, so the debuff is about to go out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds.
I mean, it's a decent amount of time, but I mean, 8 seconds when you're panicking, feel it goes kind of fast.
Yeah, especially with the distance between some of the eggs.
Yeah. It could be interesting to see how it's gonna be tackled. Otherwise, I don't think there's much to it. How was it in terms of tanking? Because I know our group discussed a bit 3 tanking to have 2 tanks deal with boss and potentially 1 or 2 ads, but then you had another tank fully deal only with the ads. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the issue with 3 tanking anything currently is like there has to be a significant gain or no enrage, basically, or extremely long enrage on the boss fight to make it worth it. So that's going to depend on final boss tuning, health tuning. My guess is you're just not going to be able to 3 tank because of tuning based on where this is in the raid. And in general, I mean, you're just gonna have your tanks kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? Like you're at most you have two of the big crabby boys at any one time. I guess they're spiders, but they can turn into crabs if you turn that on. But uh my guess is at most you'll have two of those, right? If you go into the big ad area, and at that point they're going to be empowered on mythic, so they are going to apply a stacking 10% healing reduction to the tank. And so it's probably just going to be a situation of kill the crab before your tank dies, is my guess. And I don't think you'll actually want to invest in a third tank, is my guess. Just, and that's just generally my opinion too. Like, fights have to be extremely, they have to be designed in a very specific way
Mm.
for you to consider a third tank.
Yeah, no, that
And,
makes sense.
and one of those ways has to be the enrage is undertuned. And this is a boss fight which seems to enrage actually relatively quickly, right? Because the 3 areas
Yeah.
fill up with goo and then you're donezo, right? So
I mean, that's true. That's true. And in the end, you're probably just gonna, run a DK, not necessarily a tank, but have a DK in the group for some added control and potential grippy hands. But outside of that, did you know if the crab spiders were um, grippable or knockable or anything like that?
the big ones were not, I don't believe. I don't think they were
No, it's only the
CCable.
small then.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. Then maybe you don't actually need a DK either. Would have just been nice for stacking up, big spiders if the eggs spawn, very separately, or you break them on opposite sides or something of that pie slice. But I don't think it's gonna be necessary. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything more to it. I mean, we could talk about the mutated buffs they get, but I don't think it's much to it there.
Yeah, the ads add aggressively more. Yeah.
Yeah, and the small ads, if you don't control them, you will die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I guess we move on to Nexus Princess, which I absolutely love.
Oh my god. Yeah, this
That
fight
fight
was
was
so
so
cool.
good.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping
This is
it's
pretty
like,
rating.
yeah, this is what I'm hoping is like the sludge fist. You know what I mean? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
tight tuned. You gotta go right until the enrage and maybe try and live a few ticks of the enrage to kill the boss. Like that is what I'm hoping for the tuning on this boss. Because it's really cool. And the nether rift mechanic,
mm,
that is the really cool thing. The whole like physics they've made in that room.
yeah. It's and also before we talk about the mechanics itself, it's how they're telegraphed. Like when there's one ability I get where they charge you, they target one player each, the ads that spawns, and that player gets a beam towards them, and that's the direction they will charge. I don't know if you saw that, but if you as a player get targeted, it turns red, but only for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, I mean, that just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I don't even need a fucking weak, or I can use my eyeballs and instantly know I'm being targeted. But it doesn't screw anyone else because for them, it's, blue purple beam. So they know they're fine.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool, and that is not even the only one, but like animation on this fight. Like
Yeah.
the animations on this boss fight are
Oh,
are so sick.
the intermission, the
Yeah.
Starless Night with the cones, and then reusing, because I'm a fan of reusing assets if it's done in the correct way, and reusing the Farrak mechanic
Yeah, the
and making
blaze.
it
Yeah.
voidy is a stroke of genius in my opinion, because I love that mechanic and it looks glorious, and then adding it into the voidiness.
Yeah, yeah. It's so good. It is so good. But yeah, this is it's like a very this is contrasting to some of the like the previous boss, the Brute Twister. This is a very scripted fight. Like it's
Yeah.
basically full scripted on repeat in terms of how it works. So basically like initially the phase starts, a few people are going to get picked by those shadow clones, and this is going to increase over the fight. So like on pull, at least on heroic, the first phase this would target 3 players, then you'd go through to the whole intermission and it would go back, and then this would target 4 players. go do another intermission, you go back, and then this would target 5 players. So
Yeah.
you get more and more of these to deal with over the course of the fight. And then this is kind of like where the mechanics come from, right? Because like initially, wherever they drop it, it's going to be this clone, and then they're going to do these rifts that kind of suck you in. And so you kind of want to
Yeah.
spread these out a bit so that you aren't sucked in one direction. You want to be have that kind of the physics like spread it out a bit so you can kind of stay still, which was kind of cool. Because this is like
We had I tried a few different approach for the portals because I thought that was the most fun mechanic to
yeah,
test out.
yeah,
Um, so I think like for a very well coordinated raid, you could do a square type of thing where it's spread out and you can stand in the middle and be perfectly safe from all the pull ins. But one thing we tried to do was always have all but the tank one in a line behind us. So if you imagine that on pull, you place the 3 or 4 circles at the entrance at the stair in like a row with a little space between them, and then the boss dead center but far ahead in the room. Doing it that way, you didn't get Omega Pepega pulled by the 4 in the back because the boss offset a bit and
yeah.
you could use a wind rush or a roar. So you didn't lose any uptime, and it was very easy to coordinate with the circles, or it was easier to manage that coordination because it was literally you have a circle, you run here.
Yeah, no, that's definitely yeah. It's very cool how they work too, and it's like you can. There's a lot of like little things you can do to as melee players, especially to kind of gain uptime because in reality, you actually don't need the circles to be super far from the boss, right?
Yeah,
Like you can have them actually be relatively close, and if you have enough circles offsetting
yeah,
the one pull in, you can actually just kind of hang out right next to the boss, which is kind of cool.
yeah. No, really like that. And then the added thing of which seemed to only target melee, which was the charge, which then controls where the next portal will be, which I thought was kind of fun. Melee have to do mechanics, but it's also it opens up a lot of options. I don't know what's going to be the approach in the end. The one approach we tried that I talked a bit about, I don't think it's going to work in Mythic due to Mythic mechanics that you had to hit the boss. Uh, but on Heroic, we just had, the portals at the entrance. And when the first charge targeted melee, we just made it charge straight through the room to the other side. And then we had the exact same location, but on the opposite side. And then tank just moved boss a little bit. And then you could just do that back and forth for the entire fight. The only thing is players would have to, use their eyeballs to not get charged. Uh, but you
Yeah.
could also instead have them charge like two, still in the same way, but 2 of them slightly to the right, 2 of them slightly to the left, because then players wouldn't really get charged in the middle. So there's a lot of approaches you can do with the positioning of where they charge, where you drop the portals. But then the tank could also offset it a bit, because I know I called a lot during the fight if one player or if 1 or 2 players made their charge in a weird direction. I could just ping somewhere and be like, tank stand here and drop yours here, and it will kind of offset. So you had to do a little geometry mid fight,
Yep, yep, yep.
which I absolutely loved, because it was like, okay, this got fucked, but we have a solution. We just have to be fast with it and be like, okay, that one is there. Tank goes here, and it should offset.
Yeah, it was definitely really interesting too. Yeah, because what we were trying to do by the end of it is we were trying to do this like pentagon like formation, like around the boss, and then
Yep.
tanks would adjust where they dropped theirs depending on where everyone else dropped. So
Yeah.
again, it puts that responsibility more on like an individual player, and everyone else can kind of just drop wherever is closest to them. And
Yeah.
then it also made it interesting for the charges, because then what you would want to do is you just want to try and charge them all like to the right. And if you did that, like if you charge them all to the right, you'd actually maintain the same formation of portals, which was kind of interesting
Yeah.
because they all would dash like the same distance, right?
Yeah. You could also dash them into walls.
Yes, yeah, straight backwards, like just further in the wall. Yeah,
So we did try that a bit. In the end, we opted not to do it, and it's definitely not going to work in Mythic. But have the portals at the entrance, and then the melee. We had the raid close to it after the suckiness, because it was portals, suckiness, and then you get the charge. So as soon as the suckiness was over, we had the melee run towards the boss and the melee run towards those portals. And as soon as they got the charge animation, they just ran through it and charged it into the wall. That way we could always have it in the same position and never actually have to move anything.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I absolutely love this fight. For that reason that you can just tackle it in a lot of ways, and if shit hits the fan, you can actually do something about it, if you're smart. So it's not gonna work for me, but other players can do it.
Yeah, and then you were talking about the mythic mechanic. Now that is basically there are these debuffs that go out on several players, it seems like, or something like that, and you have to consume them. You have to put those charges through the boss before the intermission, otherwise it's a wipe. That's kind of how I understand it.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the same. I'm wondering how that's gonna work out in practice because you gotta have them then either a set amount or all of them always charge through boss. But then you have if any player gets hit by the charge, they get the debuff. These will eventually spawn balls and all of that jazz. So if you just have them always charge through boss, it would seem like you lose a lot of uptime as melee because you
Yeah.
continuously have to run the fuck away,
Yeah.
which seems a bit weird. But could it be a thing where it's something else that spawns that you need to hit?
It's hard to say
Because
because
it's just
the wording is a bit odd, right? Because it says she consumes death masks from the phantoms dashing through her.
yeah,
So it's hard to say. And it does seem like you don't want to ever detonate these all at once because it's a
yeah.
stacking pulsing damage. But I mean maybe you do. Maybe you just say, hey, on the first dash, let's put, 4 or however many things you have up through the boss and just pop healing CDs, heal through it
I mean,
maybe.
just checking the damage. I don't think I don't know healing that well, or definitely not in War Within. But having a million per sec for 10 seconds doesn't seem impossible to out heal if you stack, either Spirit Link, maybe a Dome, Rally Darkness, etc. Things
Yeah.
like that. Maybe not all of it at the same time, but you stack some DR and some healing, and you should be able to get through it with the HP pool we have now.
Yeah, it
But
seems like a
I mean,
million per
that's
second is fine if you're
yeah,
lining that up with defensives or healing CDs. Because it's only 10
and it
seconds of it. It's not like it's like a really long time of it.
yeah, and it all depends on how many times you have to do it, right? Because you get I don't know how many charges you get before intermission. Is it two?
I think it's 2. Yeah, you get 2 sets of charges. At least on Heroic, you got 2 sets of charges before
Yeah,
intermission. So yeah, we don't know the number of death masks, right? So we have no
no,
idea
exactly.
how many times we'll have to hit the boss with a charge. It could be that you I guess what the maximum number of death masks it could be is 8 in phase
Yeah,
1, right? Because there's only 4 charges.
yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe I made that number up, but
There's 4 circles at the start, at least on heroic, with the size we played at.
yeah, unless again maybe on Mythic you have more of the circles too, because that could totally be a thing.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's either gonna be you need to hit with every single charge, or it's gonna be something like you have to hit with half of them. Which I do think not hitting with all of them would make a better fight because then you have some options. For example, if we just make up numbers here and it's a total of 4 charges that needs to hit per phase one, then you could do the strat where you hit 4 on the first one, heal through it, and then for the second one you don't have to care.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you get like a break. But if it's all of them, yeah, then it's just then you always have to stack healing cooldowns and just power
Yeah.
through it.
But there's no interesting choice if it just requires you to hit all of them,
Right.
you know?
Right. It would be more fun if it wasn't. If it was just a set number rather than all.
I,
Um,
the other thing I actually talk about on this boss, which I forgot, is the
yep.
assassination, right? Like if you or not assassination, Reaper.
Reaper.
Yeah, if you drop
Reaper.
below 10%, you just get murdered.
That's very interesting. I wonder if that's gonna play out for like a tank like a Blood DK. I haven't done tanks since Shadowlands. So I'm not really up to date. But I'd assume you still swing quite low at times.
Yeah, no, I definitely did get killed by Reaper on this boss during raid testing. So I was like, ah, okay.
It's a it's a weird mechanic though. I'm not sure what I think about it because I mean, in essence, it's kind of like, oh, you go in with 90% health. But that's not really how it is either. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna like it or hate it, or if it's just gonna be a non-mechanic, that occasionally some people die.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, it's not going to be something you're actually like thinking about because healers kind of want people to be topped anyways. But it is going to be something that is just going to randomly kill you sometimes and be like, ah, damn it.
Yeah. I'd say it's an interesting mechanic, but yeah, I'll have to come back to what I think about it after Prague is done.
Yeah. See how many times
See how
I
many
die
times
to
I've
it.
died.
Yeah.
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 But then I mean, some classes have more or less health, and gear matters and things like that's gonna be a bit weird. Otherwise, I'm trying to think if there's any other important mechanics. So we have the balls. We haven't really talked about the balls, which was first of all, again, visually amazing. They look cool as hell.
Yep.
But one thing that I struggle a bit with, due to all other animations and everything is very well telegraphed. But if you as a player got the
So it's
dot on you to
instant.
drop the balls, it was kind of difficult to notice that sometimes. I would have much preferred some icon or anything above the head
Yeah.
to, showcase you are debuffed, because otherwise it's 100% a weak or a mechanic. And if they make it private for some reason, well, it's because a lot of the times, if you're focusing on everything else, you might not notice. I think your character gets like a little glowy effect when you get the dot, but I'm not even sure that's the case. I gotta check if I can find
Yeah,
anything.
it's definitely really tough to see if you ever do actually get hit by that. So some sort of clarity would be cool. If you have like a little if you have the balls around you, like was it choose like what, 4 balls, I think, or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
If you just have those
that could be
around
even
you,
cooler. Yeah,
yeah, that
that
would
would work.
be yeah, interesting because yeah, obviously you're trying not to charge it through the group for the most part, but if it ever does happen, like we did have wipes where there was a charge that went off and then the people that got hit by the charge that weren't expecting to get hit by the charge just blew up and there was like a billion of those
Yeah,
orbs
we
in
we we had
melee.
several of those, but my testing is always a little chaotic because I do it with a lot of people from the Discord and some people I know, and a lot of them are high end players who are used to that, but not used to playing together. And then you have a few
Yeah.
players that's not of that caliber, so it's extremely hectic when you try to do coordinated things with a group like that. Still fun though. Uh, but it's a different experience from going in with a full cutting edge guild that's used um, to do stuff or progress together.
Yeah, yeah,
So the
for
balls,
sure.
there was a lot of balls.
Yeah,
Um,
especially later in the fight too. Like once you actually have 6 of the images up, like things
oh
get
yeah,
very hectic very quickly.
but I like it. I just wish it was a little bit more well telegraphed. Otherwise, it's just 100% a weak aura thing, which
Yeah.
is it seems like they're trying to work away from the need of weak auras for at least certain mechanics, which I approve of, because I think it's more healthy for the game overall that a new player could come in and not be like, oh, I need a billion weak auras to even understand what the fuck's happening
Yeah.
to me. So I hope they changed that part, but otherwise it was just really cool fight. One thing I noticed with the tank slammed void portal, I don't know if you had that experience, but our tanks complained that sometimes it spawned in front of them and sometimes behind the boss.
Oh, really? I think it was for us at least it was always in front of the boss.
Huh. Maybe our tanks were just liars.
Could be. That tanks are known to lie actually at all
They
times.
do.
Yeah.
They say they pop defensives, but they never do.
The audacity.
Otherwise, trying to think if there's anything else here to discuss on this fight. So the intermission, I mean, I guess there's not much to talk about in the intermission more than dodge stuff and don't die,
Yeah,
but it
you
does
got
look pretty cool.
blazes and you got the little pie effect on the room that you're trying to avoid. My guess is you'll have some kind of front back, left to right kind of deal for the blazes, because the room can get very you lose space very quickly. Does the
Yeah.
pattern change here actually on
Uh, one thing I noticed,
does, yeah.
I want to remember when you got further into the fight, you got an extra cone, but I could be making shit up.
Yeah, yeah, the very last intermission before the enrage has 3 cones instead
Yeah.
of 2.
Yeah. It's also weird. I mean, it's a little weird that it's not increasing with every intermission, but
Yeah.
rather after like 2 or 3. But then again, I mean, a lot of enrage mechanics, if you will, sometimes kick in at low health or further into the fight to really make it into an enrage type of thing. This isn't necessarily an enrage, but it's like you're at the end of the fight now. You got to deal with more shit.
Yeah, yeah, but it was really cool though. I really like this fight.
Oh, yeah, I'm hyped AF. Um, the daggers, yeah, they were just don't get hit. And the rifts, I did try getting eaten by a rift. I promise it was on purpose,
Yep,
and you
yep.
do die.
Yeah, very
Uh,
quickly, very quickly.
uh, uh, no, I think that's it for this one. Then I think we've gone through all the fights that we've
Yeah,
actually done testing of. But then we have, so I guess we start with Sikren. Since we haven't tested Sikren, I have little to no idea on how this fight work, and I haven't actually read through the journals all that much. I've just skimmed through the fights we haven't tested.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
potentially too, if you wanted, we could revisit Sikrin, Silken Court, and then also the final boss after the next testing. Obviously, the final boss isn't going to be tested, but if you
I mean,
wanted
that
to get a
makes
better
sense, kind
idea,
of.
yeah. But
That makes sense, kind of, because I think it's better for other people viewing to
yeah, have like
potentially
a
have some
visual.
footage and some understanding of the fight when we can grasp the core concept. Because reading through the journal is always, just pure speculation. Like Sikren, it seems like players get hit by X mechanic, they spawn simulacrums
Yeah,
that you need to kill in a staggered fashion because each of them explodes. It's a little bit like the third to last boss in Eternal Palace that spawned those void orbs that you had to kill at specific timings, or the entire raid went boom. Because but then it was if you killed them in quick succession, you blew up. It was like you took 2000% increased damage for 4 seconds or something. So you had to stagger them, and I think it's something similar here. Although it's not a damage increase, it's a stacking dot. So yeah, you just have to kill them in a staggered fashion and kill all or most of them before Shattering Sweep because it destroys all the simulacrums. And that's about as far as I got on reading the abilities. So it's might be a better idea to revisit it after we tested it.
yeah.
And you have to spend more time with me then on another day.
Exactly, and then we'll have an idea of, like, some of the
Oh,
mythic mechanics, then we can go into Queen Ansarek too, because that's gonna be a long one just based on the journal, and we're gonna have
oh.
to really, come up with stuff there because 'cause we're not gonna be able to test that boss.
Another one will be. It's always interesting. I both hate and love it because like I said, I love going in fresh on stuff. But when we get to test everything else, it's like, but why not this one?
Yeah, yeah. It's always cool, though, walking up to it on, the first week of the raid coming out, and
Yeah,
there's, like, a lot of times even maybe the Race World First guilds are saving their splits on the final boss, right? So they're
yeah.
not even killing it. So you actually do just kinda have to figure it out if you get there early.
And that's why you see guilds like, oh, what are they called? Strawberry. Good lord, my mind's a blank. Is it Strawberry Puppy Kisses or something?
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
usually snags world first on heroic and things like that. Because the raised world first guilds are saving them for splits.
Even the early mythic bosses too, they usually are
Yeah,
busy splitting, but that may not be a thing anymore with Heroic Week coming back. I guess that's something too.
yeah.
So maybe on the start of Mythic Week, guilds actually go into Mythic. That would be crazy.
That, you're right. That's so weird. I wonder if they're gonna have. I still can't remember if they wasn't there a time where you had to kill last boss on heroic to even do mythic,
Think so. I
or
think
am
that
I
was a
imagining
long
that?
time, or I think it was
Yeah,
that was back maybe before Mythic. That was pre-Mythic when you had to kill the last boss on normal before you could turn on heroic. I think that's
yeah, it could be.
showing your
Trying to
age,
remember.
Stanky.
Yeah, I'm old AF, man. I'm ancient. Regardless, I think that was kind of a like both of an annoying approach, I guess, for a lot of players, but I kind of liked it because but you have to clear it before you can progress further. But then with current tuning and how the raids work, often the last fight on heroic or even normal, well, normal is a stretch. Heroic is easier than the first boss on mythic, or harder than the first boss on
Yeah,
mythic.
yeah,
So Sylvanas, for example, in Sanctum, I mean, she was just not playing nice week one,
yeah, yeah,
but you could easily go in and kill first boss on mythic,
yeah. Even
even if
first
you didn't kill Sylvanas.
few bosses in a lot of cases are
Yeah,
easier than AOTC. Like, and I think that's even still true. Like heroic Farok
yeah,
definitely is harder than Mythic Agira, Mythic Gnarl route. You know?
yeah. And not when we killed it, because that was first week, wasn't it? Like undertuned, or it was some weird. Like we like two shot or one shot heroic Frog first week.
Oh, maybe there. I think there was like some mechanic that wasn't working, and then people got upset because they essentially buffed heroic for rock, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I remember that actually. Yeah, yeah,
Because we were like, okay, this is
yeah.
it. Fine, we're done. It's always fun when they do stuff like that. When they rebuff, it brings me back yet again to Solana Legion. But in Tomb of Sargeras with the Naga boss, Mistress, on Mythic, when a lot of guilds killed it by cheesing it with a blood DK using Icebound Fortitude and other things. And then after a week or two, they just made it so that didn't work. And half the guilds that had killed it couldn't re-kill it
Yeah.
because that strat didn't work.
Ziskarn, anybody?
Oh, God. I had forgotten. I hate that boss for so many reasons. One of them is I wrote 3 different guides for it,
Oh yeah.
and they managed to change it before I hit post each time. I haven't there is
Oh
no guide
no.
from me on Ziskar out, because I was like, when it happened the 3rd time, I was like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm not doing this boss. I'm not writing another guide on this. I'm done. Like, I don't care. The same was true for Jailer, though. Anytime I had written and fixed a guide, they made nerfs, and took
Yeah.
away tons of steps. And oh god, that was
They
awful.
deleted what the basically they deleted the last 2 phases of Jailer.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Oh,
good. That was
feels
good.
bad, man. Uh, yeah. This was fun. It was way more easygoing than I don't know what I expected, but not having done any kind of discussions, or I don't know if you want to call it a round table with 2
Yeah,
players.
I mean our
Uh,
table is very round. It's just a small
it,
round table, okay?
yeah, it's a coffee table,
Yeah,
really.
there you go. There you go. I had a good
But it
time. It's
is
good.
interesting, and I'd like to do more stuff like this in the future, potentially with, a slightly bigger table and adding in um, other peeps that might be mechanically up to date, because that's always what I think is the most interesting, is hearing other people's thoughts and approaches to mechanics. Because like what I see and what I think is most likely going to be completely different to other players, even if we're on the same skill level or caliber, if you will.
Yeah, it's always cool to talk to other people because like they like you're saying like even too just like having a tank player, a DPS player, a healer player, or like a melee and a range player too, and just like
Yeah,
seeing how the different roles kind of perceive these mechanics and stuff like that is just always really interesting. So it's fun. I had a good time.
same. It would be fun thinking about it now, like a bit into the tier when it's in retail. When we've cleared things, to go back and have a little roundtable discussion about all the fights and what we thought about them and different things we tried and problems, and yeah, just break down uh, the progression part from our side, and then bring in a healer, some range DPS, not a warlock.
Not a
Uh,
warlock, yeah.
they don't do mechanics; they just live.
Yeah, maybe we'll be kind to the hunters. We'll get a hunter in here.
Mm. But I mean, they can survive. It's just that they don't want to press the buttons because it costs a global. Uh,
You know, that would actually be really cool. That sounds really fun. Yeah, especially too, yeah, also like having people in from different like guild ranks too to get like a
yeah.
different perspective from different things. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that
that
would be
sounds really
fun.
cool.
Because I can see like on the top of my head. I don't know if you know. I I think you know broccolis, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's great overall, and she's very good, at healing things and discussing, both pros and cons of healing and healing encounters. I think she would be down for it as long as she has time. So I think that could be cool. And then just find a few other from other. Maybe we could get some, I don't know what world rank y'all are at now. I know you were ahead of my guild when I played. Uh,
Yeah,
what world rank did you end up on
I've
in
actually
on
switched
Rock?
guilds now. So yeah, that
Oh,
guild that I was a part of, we were around world rank 100, but they
yeah.
ended up disbanding after season
Oh,
3. So I'm now in consequence. So they're I think
ah,
around world rank 50 is where they're at right now.
that's cool. A
So
little step up.
yeah, little step up, good vibes, all that stuff. Full. I'm excited. It's going to be my first actual tier rating with them in season 1, right? Because we did season 4, but you know,
I mean,
it's
that's not a thing.
yeah, it's
you you can't trial a player during it, and you can't, as
yeah,
a trial, evaluate a guild because it's virtually farm.
yeah. So I'm excited for the new season for sure.
That's gonna be cool. I'm ish in the same boat. The only difference is I don't have a guild,
Uh oh.
so I'm a little bit on the stress part right now because for one, I don't want to touch season 4 at all. I just want to
Yeah.
do beta content and cover that shit. I don't want to touch season 4, but I feel like if I'm gonna find a guild to play with in season 1, they probably want to see a little bit of me in season 4. But then again, I'm thinking any guild that's world rank 150 plus should know how pointless it is
Yeah.
to trial someone, and they can just look back on everything else I've done previously and should be able to get a good idea of if I'm worth the investment or not. But I don't know,
Yeah, I feel
so
like
I'm a little stressed about
because
that.
yeah, I mean you have stuff from season 1 through 3, right? So I feel like
Yeah, yeah.
having season 4 logs is kind of irrelevant, to be honest.
I mean,
Should be
if
fun,
I
especially if you're
was
playing a lot of
recruiting
beta.
someone, I wouldn't care about it, but I don't know how other play guilds
Yeah.
think about it. So it's gonna, yeah, I gotta pull myself up by the bootstraps soon and go guild hunting. But I'm still like, beta content.
Yeah. No, yeah. I just when I had to guild hunt, I just got out of the way. I think in like 2 nights I just sent it out like, 10, 15 apps and I was like, there we go, we're done. We're just
Yeah,
get it out of the way.
yeah, but I love procrastinating. It's the
Yep,
best.
true. Yep.
Why do anything today that you could potentially do in the last minute? It seems wrong. Why be organized in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, it's overrated to be honest.
All right. But this was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. It was very fun hearing your side of things also, and especially since you were able to uh, test things a little bit more organized than me, so you could try other things. So it was very, very, very fun to hear that side of it.
Yeah, yeah, I had a good time,
Um,
and yeah, I'm excited for our future convos. It'll be good.
yeah. Now I have to think for sure after next testing. So at the end of the month, we should do this again with the remaining bosses, and then try when the tier is done in retail. Um, have another to get together potentially then with more players, like I said, from different world ranks.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm hyped. I don't think there's anything else. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, no, yeah, I think yeah, good convo. Excited to look at the last couple of boss we haven't tested. Excited to see stuff on Mythic. Otherwise, yeah, that's all on my
Right?
end.
Yeah, sweet. Then I'm gonna go back to the old streameroni.
Yes,
But
sir.
thank you so much for joining me and doing this.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Always a ton of fun. So looking forward to more.
Yeah. Oh, thank you again.
Yep. Appreciate it.
I'll
See
see
ya.
you around.
Boom. There we go. Little conversation with the legendary Stanky, guys. Huge, huge. Now, I'm going to go back to editing jail, but appreciate all the follows I got over the course of the stream, guys. Cobsona, Regv, DJ Ursu, Ravenly, Johnny. Yeah, all you guys, thank you for the follows. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. I'll probably, once we actually get the second part of the conversation, I'll probably cut everything together and throw out a YouTube video on it. But yeah, it was a fun convo. It was a fun convo. I am going to go back to editing jail though. Like I said, got the Mythic Plus first impressions and kind of, recommendations for changes to the affixes and dungeons. That video is hopefully coming out tomorrow if I can, get it all edited and ready to go. So that should be coming out tomorrow. We got the Vengeance Demon Hunter and the Blood DK first impressions also coming out later this week. And then, of course, we'll have Brewmaster coming out probably after the weekend. So lots of stuff planned. Hopefully, you guys are looking forward to it. But yeah, I'm heading out. Let me go. Who we got here? Who do we got? We got Stanky is still streaming. I think. See if he's still streaming. Let me just. We'll raid Stanky, guys. We'll raid Stanky. So let's /raid. Boom. And we are off. So appreciate you guys for hanging out. Appreciate the follows, all the good stuff. And I'll see you guys later.
Rawr.